And we are off.
And we're on.
Nice.
So I got to jump out of here and go on to another one to get over to
No.
you, Alan, or?
No. We stay here. We just moved the
okay.
YouTube to mine.
Oh, okay.
So
and
yeah,
I'll hang in for as long as it lets me.
Yeah, so the live on YouTube is on the link that I've on the link that you've already found that I've been posting. I posted in our inside chat and have been posting in the in Jose's side chat, and yeah, we just carry on right where we are.
I better turn it off over there, otherwise I'll be hearing myself twice.
So who's going to start then?
Well, this is the silence before the storm, the peace. The peace before the war.
I don't know. I wanted to ask that guy that questioned me about applied mathematics and theoretical mathematics, and I wanted to know if pi is applied mathematics or theoretical mathematics.
That'd be true. He's not here.
I was lost with the ratio things. I couldn't see where that came from or where it was going. That was throwing me off.
Pi is just the relationship between. That's the how you calculate the circumference of a circle. I mean, that's not kind of. There's nothing theoretical.
I know, but it's an irrational number. So is it applied mathematics or is it theoretical? Are irrational numbers applied mathematics or theoretical mathematics? Is the question.
Well, it's a little bit of both, I guess.
Right, I would say both.
Yeah, I would say.
I actually measured it. I mean, I have a video on my channel of me measuring pi.
Mathematics to a certain decimal point. It's only applied mathematics to a certain decimal point. I get the answer.
I measured it using a pizza stone in a video on my channel, and I got it correct out to 4 decimal places.
Did you say pizza?
Yeah, I used a pizza stone.
Well, doesn't four decimal places in your world mean that you got it right?
It's within a very high degree, yes.
Awesome.
Do you know what an error bar is?
Yeah, in your world, yeah. It's called hedging your bets.
There's no error bar in your world?
Those are really good. I eat those daily.
Tool. No, everything is exact in Travis's world.
So if your body temperature isn't exactly 98.6 degrees, then you're dead.
Uh-huh. Cool story, bro.
You know, I've actually seen somebody who we thought was dead. Once we warmed up the body, they just popped right back.
That was the plain truth.
I know. I'm just saying that it's actually really funny when it comes to Well, it's not funny when it comes to death, but in situations where death doesn't actually occur, it's actually interesting some of the things that could happen. That's why the saying is always, they're not dead until they're dead in war.
That's why they had wings.
He's actually cold-blooded.
So, Travis, you really don't believe that error bars are a thing?
No, what I mean is that in your model for your cosmology, the error bar is something that has to, I think, be exaggerated and depended on more so than other aspects of error bars. If you're talking about cutting planks for the skeleton of a house or something like that.
Can you give me an example?
If you give me some time to think about it, sure, I'll try to be more concrete. Sure. But that's just been something, as I've listened to the narration with different episodes and different shows and different people who represent your model. In my mind, I remember having those thoughts. Well, that's nice to have that kind of flexibility, and it just seems that that's part of that's just like a fundamental basis for you guys to to rely on.
So, right. So the fact that there is an error bar and people have determined the accuracy to which they're measuring things is worse than I don't know, which is what you claim every time you say something.
Not every time.
So an error bar is it's a scale that says, that's good enough.
No,
Well,
it
in
should
theory, yeah.
Just
I
because,
mean,
just call it a good enough bar.
Or the
if
hand,
you didn't have
hand
if you
grenade
didn't
bar.
have an error bar, I mean, to the larger the number, the larger the error bar is going to be. It doesn't matter what you're measuring.
Yeah, I suppose I would
the
agree with you, Sean, to a certain extent. In the real world, if we're building a house, that's something tangible. I think that's something that people have brought up, and I brought that up the other day. Show me, you can't show me your error bar in space. You can't show it to me. It's all just theoretical. So that's where, I think I'm going to try to echo a little bit of Maxwell's question. When we get outside of the realm of empirical, that is, it's tangible and I can handle it, the error bar is essential because you can't verify it. It's always just,
The error bar is always essential.
And I said, I think I said even more so in your narrative. It's
But you
even
didn't
more.
have an example. You just are stating it.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go on pause or on mute, and I will think hard on giving you a concrete example of an abstract idea.
You said hard on.
Oh God, we're 12.
how's the new job there, Cliff?
It's pretty good. I'm taking a little break right now, but been doing a lot of testing of uninterruptible power sources. So far, they all work.
Wait, so what are you doing? What do you not have to be too specific, of course. I don't want it to get doxxed, but like, what are you're working for a government contractor kind of a thing?
Yeah, I'm an electrical engineer.
Right.
So we build equipment that goes on mostly warships.
Okay. Yeah, you might want to stop talking like Beavis and Butthead because you're scaring me just a little bit with the kind of work that you do and the way you speak and some of the things you say. Just FYI.
You should be scared.
I am. We have an electrical engineer working on military stuff saying hard on.
Hey, Chris, if you were in the military, you would be scared 100-fold.
Wow.
I was just going to say that would be the tamest thing that I've ever heard in a platoon.
Because if you actually seen how the military operates, you would probably facepalm yourself 100 times and go, Jesus Christ, how does this shit actually function?
Were you in the military?
Yeah. It's a
Can you give me an
miracle it
example?
works. Just put it this way. If you want to see a definition of a miracle, join the military.
Paperwork in triplicate.
Can you give us an example?
An example of how it doesn't work or how
Right.
it functions. It's controlled chaos. Just put it that way. That's the best example I
Well,
can give you.
anytime you have an
uncontrolled.
anytime you have an organization that large with that many people, it's going to be controlled chaos, right? I mean, you're talking about what I don't want to say. I don't want to say incorrect numbers. How many people are in the military total of all combined armed services?
On average, about 1 million for the U.S.
Yeah, I think it's about 1% of the U.S. population.
Yeah, it gets bigger. It gets larger and smaller.
So that's a lot of people.
Especially the Army. The Army's giant.
Right.
As of 2018, 1.3 million active duty with 865,000 in reserve.
I mean, even in our tiny armed forces in the UK, it's all hurry up and wait and chaos bordering on not quite being controlled.
That's why we have the saying Semper Gumby, always flexible.
Yeah, it's It is scary being in the military sometimes. Sorry, it is scary knowing what it can be like in the military.
So, just to keep the show going, I don't know what you guys are talking about, but is Alkay on the hangout? We have some unfinished business.
Uh-oh.
That could be good.
I see it. I see his name, but I don't know if he's available.
Just before the shouting starts, Alan asked me a question in the side chat about the mount he was using and stuff. What was that again, Alan?
Well, I noticed that in your image of the moon, it was significantly rotated compared with my image of the moon at about the same point in the same lunar eclipse. And I know I'm a little bit south of you, but I'm not that far south. You know, I was in Norfolk, England, rather than Edinburgh. But I'm assuming that would have been because you were using an equatorial mount to track the moon, and I was doing it on a straight camera tripod.
Yeah, well, there was that was over the big long picture. That's over about 6 hours. So there is a great deal of like a cartwheeling effect. But the what I did was I used a really big equatorial mount, actually, that weighed about 50 kilos, which was a bloody nightmare. But for a camera and a tiny little telescope. But so if you start off, you frame the moon, and what I did was I rotated the camera so that I was getting a vertical north-south in terms of the poles of the moon. And once you've set that, as the equatorial mount arcs across the sky, that orientation just remains the same.
Yeah.
Which makes it.
Yeah. Because I'd actually moved from, although you linked to the big one, I actually looked at the next one along in your Flickr stream, which is, I think the sun's just the moon's just starting to come out of totality, and you've got the bright lit bit at sort of about 7 o'clock, whereas I've got it at about 10 o'clock. But like I said, that will be the fact that my mount keeps the camera relatively square to the Earth and lets the moon rotate in the field. Lets the field rotate.
Yeah. That was probably the reason I had put that as a single image. That's the it's one of the images from the big long
yeah, I thought
image, but it was probably the best exposure, and it's got a star in it down at 7 o'clock or something.
Albert K, are you there?
How do you know it's not Alfred?
Alfred K, are you there?
Could be Aloysius.
Oh,
be
Aloysius.
Alberoni.
That was a good one. Alberoni, that's a good one.
Albert.
Oh,
Alistair.
I'm driving. I can mostly listen. That's why I'm still in.
So
I would suggest you start with going back and reading the other response I made to your comment.
Well, I can make it real simple. I have a real simple question, and your answer will be very telling. Can you have atmospheric refraction on a flat Earth?
Not the type that you're claiming causes things to disappear bottom up.
Okay, you're wrong.
Well, that's a great argument. Thanks.
I've made the argument all week. Barney's on. Barney can back me up. Dr. Bob, if Dr. Bob joins, he can back me up like he did the other day. So I don't know what your issue is with just conceding and setting a baseline that this is true. Well, I know why, because then it even supposes the Earth could be flat. That's your problem.
Hold on, passing the cops.
Wave to him.
Hit the gas, floor it, faster, faster.
Wave to
Tip
him
your
with your
horn.
phone in your hand.
Right, so I spent a couple of hours trying to get you to comprehend the difference between a horizontal line and a vertical one, and you still didn't understand it. You then quoted a couple of articles that talk about the speed of light changing through different densities, and I had spent all that time trying to explain to you that the reason why the horizontal versus vertical was different was because on the horizontal there is no change in density, and in the vertical there is, because it's
That's
passing
wrong.
along the gradient. So you still didn't
That's
understand that.
No, I
Barney got you to
understand.
agree
You're
to
just
the
wrong.
gradient be inexistent, which would cause, which doesn't fit with your version of refraction causing compression, because learning's the opposite. And all I heard Bob say was, I agree there can be refraction on a flat Earth, but he never specified exactly how it presents itself. So I'm not seeing that much backup for what you're saying specifically.
Well, they're absolutely backing me up. You're just continuing to parrot a narrative that you've been parroting for God knows how long. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Can I jump in and ask a question?
Yeah, hold on, Travis. One more thing. To claim that there's no vertical density gradient is patently false.
Then you don't understand what density is.
No, I understand what it is. All right. Is the air at 3 inches less or more dense than the air at 1 foot?
Right, that's vertical, not horizontal.
Yeah, you said there's no density gradient, vertical density gradient.
No, right. I probably wasn't paying attention if you just said vertical a second ago. The whole argument was that I was making was about the horizontal path of light. So that if it's on one certain height above the surface, the gradient is the same for the length that you're looking across. So 10 foot above, yes, if it's 10 foot above you, then 5 feet out in front of you, it's 10 foot above you, 50 feet out in front of you. The density at that point of the atmosphere is the same. The density below that will be higher.
So that's why
the density above that will be less.
That's why there's inferior mirage, because the density gradient, the vertical density gradient, isn't causing the mirage.
Because the light was traveling parallel to the bottom of the tank, because it was moving in a horizontal direction, but once it's moved, it's angled so that it comes through the vertical gradient. That's when it bends.
Barney has disproved. There's another video that disproves that. That person doesn't. What that person did in your video, they had the light too high when it was vertical, or excuse me, horizontal, and then when they brought it down, they angled it. If they brought it down and kept it horizontal, it would have done the same thing, because that's where the thicker part of that sugar water would have been.
That's an assertion that you can't back up, I'm afraid.
Well, that is what I can back up, because there's another video showing that.
Well, you could also back it up by
that video
simply...
that.
Yes, you're just in denial. You're just in denial.
The video that Barney shared, the light was not held parallel, and you couldn't even see the person's hands or the laser. So you need to find a demonstration where someone is pointing the laser perfectly parallel to the surfaces of the tank they're shining it through, and still demonstrating a curve at a lower part of the tank.
Sorry, someone pretending to be the Social Security Administration called me from a call center in India. What have I missed?
Go ahead, Travis.
Did you tell him that?
Al,
sorry, go ahead.
Al, do you believe that the phenomenon of watching a boat go into the distance is always uniform, so that you will always see it do the same thing every single time, so that you would say every single time you're seeing it disappear from the bottom up?
Travis, part of what you said cut out. Would you mind repeating?
Sure. When you assert that you have seen a ship or a boat disappear from the bottom up, is it your belief that every single time you see that, it always happens in the exact same way?
it's a little bit of an open question, but essentially it would be, obviously there are different atmospheric conditions on different days. So you might encounter some haze, some compression, and some inferior mirage and all that kind of stuff, in addition to the effect of it going over the horizon. So.
Okay, so part of my question is a visual question. You've seen Monty Python do this, or you've seen people on escalators. When they go away from you and they go down, they disappear incrementally from the feet up. Is that what you think happens every single time? Even if, like you said, well, sometimes there's atmospheric, but that's not my question, because I know that there's atmospheric. My question is, do you believe that the boat is always physically doing that action?
Yeah, because when it's moving away from you, it doesn't matter whether there's some other effect taking place. Its actual physical location and the effects from the geometry are consistent. So you can gauge what's actually happening with it, not just by looking to see that it's disappearing bottom up, but you can also go by the reduction in angular size and its apparent level, because it's not just a case of they're shrinking uniformly and following the rule of perspective. The upper portions of the boat also sink down in a way that isn't explained by perspective alone.
So Al, you're basically
okay. So a follow-up question to that would be: have you ever tried with your own eyes?
Hello?
Yeah, Al, am I coming in okay? Anybody hear me?
You're breaking up there.
Yes.
So have you
All
ever
I
tried
heard
with
is-
your own eyes? And that was it.
Okay, so can you hear me
Yeah.
now, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's,
Okay, so have you ever, with your own eyes, observed this phenomenon, like intentionally? I'm going out to the beach, I'm going to watch a boat go away. Have you ever watched this phenomenon?
Well, you know that I must have, if I've presented photographs that I've taken while doing that.
It's an easy answer. I'm not trying to catch
No,
you out. I'm
I
having
just
a conversation.
don't
I'm not being a
understand why you're
dick. I'm
asking
you a question.
if I've done it, because I must have to be able to present you with the pictures that I've
I
taken.
don't know that you've done it, Al. I don't know that you've done it, okay? Just pretend like I don't know. I don't know.
Sorry.
I'm asking you a question.
There must be something
Okay.
some crossed wires here. Are you saying without a camera? There's something specific
Okay.
about the question.
I didn't use. Okay, listen. This isn't difficult. Have you, with your own eyes, watched a boat go into the distance on the water?
Yes, many times.
Okay. Do you believe that your eyes are accurate enough to start to detect and distinguish this movement over the curve?
You're gonna need a magnifying device like a zooming camera or a telescope.
Actually, no. If you're basically asking me, can I tell if a ship is going over the curve and disappearing bottom up with my own eyes, as opposed to a piece of optical equipment? Yes, absolutely, 100%.
All right. Well, I defy that, and I have. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. There's no way. Nobody has ever seen a ship. No one has accurate enough vision to say that they are detecting and can see that minute and acute of a distinction. No way.
does it have to be
Well,
a ship?
I disagree. It's through personal experience. So what do you want me to say? The problem with having this argument is that you're not going to be able to individually prove either case to each other, because you're talking about what you've seen with your own eyes, and we can't produce images of that. So.
Right. So I have a working hypothesis or a working challenge that I and someone else go on the beach, observe the same phenomenon, and as soon as that person says, "Oh, the ship's going over the curve, I can see it," we need to take a picture right at that moment and analyze the picture, because I'm telling you, no one in this world, no one can do that with their own eyes, unaided. No one. Not even Aristotle.
Sorry, it sounds like you just changed the terms of what you're trying to say here. Can I see a ship Earth? Yes, I can. Can I see the exact millisecond that it's no longer above the horizon and slightly disappeared by a ball hair underneath it? No, I can't see that. You see it when it becomes obvious to the eye.
And I'm telling you, you can't do that with your own eye. You can't.
Oh, you absolutely can.
Oh, you absolutely cannot.
Pretty much any. I don't know what you're looking at with your own eyes when you're out doing observations, Travis. But I look for the thing I want to point my camera at before I point my camera.
Yeah. I'm
So
out every day.
I see a boat going over the horizon, or train my camera on it, and then I just show it. Maybe my eyesight's just better than yours. What can I say?
Yeah, I mean, so Travis, I don't think that's going to go anywhere.
Yeah,
unfortunately, you're going to say you can. He's going to say you can, and then you're going to get
No. That's why. Hold on. No. Hold on.
I have been out with someone else, and that other person did the same. We both spoke about it specifically, how amazing it is that you can see it at quite a distance with your eye. So it's a conversation I've had personally with another observer.
Right. Yeah, Chris, my qualification was that when I'm on the beach with Al K or whoever it is that's going to do this with me, that at the moment that person says he or she can see with their own eye the ship going over the curve, we take a picture at that moment.
Yeah, but the problem
is going to be.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter because they're just going to say it's curve, and we're just going to say it's atmosphere, and we're at a stalemate again. But I do want to get back to the concession that Al's going to need to make here eventually. So Al, do you agree that?
Well, this is great. I spent hours trying to explain the difference between horizontal and vertical, and you couldn't get it. But I'm the one that doesn't understand and has to concede something. It's amazing. Your confidence is phenomenal, Chris.
So do you agree that the atmospheric layer, the density layer from the bottom, from 1 millimeter above surface, above that rising, there's always heat rising above that point? Do you agree with that?
No, not in every circumstance. I wouldn't say necessarily that it's heat rising. But
okay, so in most circumstances,
it would be some kind of gradient, then yes.
So in most circumstances where you're seeing observations where there's miraging and refraction, is the case that the heat and the temperature variations, or the heat's rising, as we know heat to do and gases to do.
Chris, are you trying to lure me into repeating the definition that you used the other day about heat haze? Because I am not denying heat haze. I'm talking about inferior mirage and compression. So there's not a problem with understanding that there is an atmospheric gradient. There's not a problem with understanding there is changes in temperature and there's changes in pressure and density as a result. But the point is that the angle that the light travels through those layers of gas, if you're on a horizontal line from one point to another point, that layer of gas that you're looking for, that layer of atmosphere, is horizontal, and there's no change in density through that layer. So you have to provide a reason why the light traveling through that layer would suddenly choose to deviate out with that layer and go into another layer to encounter these other
layer is constantly, because that layer you're talking about is constantly being circulated with new gases and new heat and very temperature variations and all that stuff. The same thing that's causing the heat above the road, the so-called desert mirage.
So when you're taking an observation, why is there only a band of refraction? Does the temperature of this rise, is this rising because refractive effects go down? Just disappear at some random?
Travis, if you're not going to talk, can you go on mute?
Okay, sorry. Okay.
You know,
Sorry,
there's a
Al.
layer where you get these refractive, and then a layer where everything looks standard. So what's the difference between the why is there a kind of split that shows you, for example, in an inferior mirage, you've got the
You've cut out, Al.
oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You're roboting, but we can hear you a little bit now.
How about now?
Yeah, that's better.
So in the case, for example, an inferior mirage, you've got a layer that only goes so high as far as you can see, and it's an inverted image, and above that everything's normal. According to what you're saying, I shouldn't even be able to see the normal part on the upper
No,
layers.
that's not what I'm
What you're
saying.
trying to tell me is even in those
No.
upper layers, there would be a change due to temperature, and refraction would.
Oh God. So hard to have a conversation when you're roboting like that. Based on what you said, no, that's not what I'm saying. At some point, you'll have a less of a discrepancy between the temperatures in the. God damn it. You'll have less of a discrepancy between the temperatures. The higher you go, because the heat, most of the heat is coming off the surface, right? The surface retains heat from the sun. Like if you're on a street, you're going to be hotter than if you were on, grass or dirt or whatever, because that street's absorbing the heat and then it's bouncing it back up. So the ground layer, the lower you are, the hotter it's going to be. Typically, again, I'm speaking on average. If you're like in Antarctica, okay, it's cold, but that's not my point, right? I'm talking that we're making these observations. And over water, you have the heat from the sun hitting the water. You have the temperature from the water coming up, and all sorts of crazy things going on. But in general, there will, and that is why there's a ban, because that layer is typically where the most of that heat inversion, call it, and disparity is going to be.
Right, and how does the light that's passing through it end up there? How does it get refracted and cause these weird images? Because it's passing at an angle through the atmosphere. It's not passing through it horizontally, then
Correct.
being deviated within that layer. It's coming from another layer, essentially, and being deviated towards your eye, and that's why you see these weird effects.
It's heat. It's the heat rising.
No. So if you've got an inferior mirage, you don't see the bottom of a boat.
Right,
little
because
point
that's where the
of little point to contest real fast, Chris. You said the heat inversion. The heat inversion would be cold at the bottom.
No, I didn't say heat inversion. I said temperature inversion earlier, but I said that's where the heat's coming from. The heat is rising.
You could get that same effect in the morning when the Earth isn't heated up as much. You could get that same effect.
Well, yeah, because there's still going to be temperature variations. It's a variation in temperature. That's what refraction is in terms of atmosphere, or how you get atmospheric refraction.
No, Chris, you need to go back at your definitions and consider it's about angle of incidence, because that is the light passing into the different densities of medium. I have to go because I'm making my girlfriend up. She's just arrived.
Hold on. Before you go, let me read this out again to everyone. This is Yahoo Answers. And the question is, does temperature affect the speed of light? If the density of a material changes with temperature, the speed of light in that material will also change. Have you ever seen the heat waves coming off an object that is hot? This is due to hot air rising and bending the light rays and travel past the object. That's the answer. The hot air is rising and it's bending the light rays. It's causing the angle of incidence that you keep talking about, that you're saying the curve is causing. That's
Hold
not
on, Chris.
true.
Hold on, Chris. That's off of Yahoo. Who answered that?
No, it's not just on Yahoo, Sean. It's also in science.
Yeah,
on
it's
science
just a known
websites.
thing. I don't know why we're having this discussion. Al's wrong. He just doesn't want to concede, and that's just it. Like, there's nothing else. There's nothing else to it. He doesn't want to admit it's possible on a flat Earth. That's it.
Nope, you're just confusing heat haze and scintillation and effects like that with refractive effects like inferior mirage and compression. They are different types of refraction, and a very, very important part of that is how you understand that there is no argument.
Okay. Oh man. See, this is the problem. We can't even come to a consensus on why there's atmospheric refraction. I read the answer. That's actually kind of common sense.
Okay.
If you know anything about refraction, and he still denies it. So sorry.
Chris.
Tell me how it is, and if all it is purely about temperature, you get different effects. What causes the difference in the different effects is about temperature.
The difference in temperature. The cause here, I'll tell you right now. The cause of inferior mirage.
If anybody tries to find out how inferior mirages occur, superior mirages
occur, right in the middle of my sentence. Al, go ahead and interrupt me right in the middle of my sentence. I'm going to say it again, whether you like it or not. The cause of inferior mirages, superior mirages, sinking, looming, stretching, skewing, magnification. It's all the same thing, and it has nothing to do with the shape of the Earth.
Yes, but not all of those are due to temperature.
Yes, they are. In the atmosphere, they are. Yes.
No, they're not. Look, read the same Yahoo answer that you've just read.
Okay.
Read the first part of the answer. How does temperature affect the refraction? By which mechanism?
You're going to have to tell me where, because there's 3 or 4 paragraphs to this.
The part that you've just read out. The temperature at an equal pressure changes the density. The density is the thing which causes refraction. Because if you have more of a refractive thing, then it will refract more.
Yeah, why is the density changing?
Yes, temperature can. Yes. I'm agreeing with you that temperature can change density.
Correct.
Other things can also change density.
Okay, that's fair enough. So the change in density of the air due to temperature and maybe other things is the cause of all refraction. It has nothing to do with the shape of the Earth. I'll accept that.
So the density gradient of the atmosphere, which causes looming, is not due to temperature. The fact that air is densest at the bottom and rarefies upwards, that is not an effect of temperature. That is density, right? That is the change of pressure due to gravity and the column above it, right?
Okay, so there's a density gradient of the atmosphere that's causing the looming.
Yes, the overall looming.
Has anything to do with the shape of the Earth?
What? No. No, I'm in that respect, I'm completely in agreement with you. You can get refraction and normal refraction and thermal refraction and that column refraction that we were just talking about, the looming refraction. You get all of those on flat Earth as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy with that answer.
Refract what?
So now I say Al Case is still here. I don't know if he's listening or if he's gone or what, but I just need a concession from him.
I am agreeing very much so with that part of your argument. Would the same things happen on flat Earth in respect to refraction? Yes. Now, would the image that we see due to that refraction be what we see now? No. I'm sorry. If there is a gradient, which is densest at the bottom and rarest at the top, on flat Earth, if you get that looming effect on flat Earth, it would look to you as though you are at the bottom of a bowl, no matter where you are, on average, no matter where you are on Earth. You would still get the same distortions due to local temperature, wind, heat rising, and all of that. That would cause the shimmering and the mirages, but the overall effect would rise your horizon up to effectively up to infinity, up to the point where the atmosphere obscures the distance. So it would just look like it's a bowl which is fading out into the blue. Now, since we don't see that, we see the horizon, and that horizon gets closer or farther depending on the gradient and on the effects that we see, but it never, ever, ever looks like a ball, never goes up. That means that the Earth is round, and the different conditions can kind of vary how round it looks, but it is necessarily round. Then the next question is, what is its radius?
So it's funny that you say that the refraction can vary how round it looks, but it can't vary how flat it looks. Why is that not the case too?
No, it can. In the opposite case, it would still vary about how flat it looks. Like it would still look like a bowl of a different radius depending on the atmospheric conditions, right? It would look slightly flatter or slightly more curved depending on the atmospheric conditions, but it would always look like a ball.
So Al K says, can't talk. I still say you're clueless about refraction. So look, we this is the problem, and I admit it's on both sides, both flat and ball, where people we can't even come to a consensus on basic facts about how refraction works. He simply can't admit that you can have refraction on a flat Earth. So I just don't get it.
He said that you can't have it the way you're describing it, Chris.
But Barney disagrees with that.
No, because your initial claim was that it was all based on temperature, but Barney was agreeing with you on the fact that it could happen on a flat Earth, but that
temperature so that's where we can
hold on. That temperature is not the only cause of refraction.
Well, that's a secondary part of the conversation.
No, that was your initial claim.
No, it wasn't my initial claim. That's a secondary part.
Actually, it was. That was the initial claim that you guys were going over.
Okay, now
and that's where the disconnect.
That 3 times. Now, if you want me to answer, I'll answer. Or you can keep saying.
Chris, wait, Chris. I asked you specifically and clearly: are all refractive effects in the atmosphere due to temperature? And you said clearly yes. Did I misunderstand that yes?
No.
Or did you mean something else?
I can't answer because Sean repeated the same thing and then you jumped in. So if you want me to, you just let me know when you want me to answer. Okay.
Please go around and dance.
The initial claim was you can have refraction on a flat Earth. That's the initial claim. Forget the cause or anything. You can. Okay.
Yeah, just be different.
Agreed. You can have refraction on. It would be the same refraction. You would just see a different thing, right? Is that where the confusion is? If no. LK is saying that the refraction would, that the mechanics of refraction would work the same, and that you would have refraction, but that you would see a different image, then I agree with him. If he's saying that refraction wouldn't happen on flat Earth, or would function differently, then I don't. Then I agree with Chris.
Yeah, he's saying it wouldn't happen at all on flat Earth because he's saying you need that. He's saying you need the angle that the ground must provide the atmospheric gradient to change the angle. if that makes sense.
I don't think that's what he said. I think he was talking about the angle of incidence from across the ground.
Right. So he's saying if the ground is flat and you're looking at a point, say 10 feet above the ground, that one point, there's no gradient at that one point because it's a horizontal viewing, and therefore there would be no refraction.
Correct. If you are looking straight along a
it's not
in
correct.
a density gradient, if you are looking along an isobar, if it's assuming its pressure is causing the density, if you're looking along an isobar, then there is no change in density, and therefore there is no refraction along that path. So if you are looking at something that is, and you are looking at it parallel with the ground, there can never be any refraction because you are not passing through different layers of density.
Oh,
Now,
and there's
if you look down a little
there's a
bit,
fallacy there.
you will get a little bit of refraction.
Alan, there is a fallacy there. So yes, I agree. If you could make a perfect isobar that was perfectly smooth, then any light pointing up would bend, light bends away from the vertical as you get into from the thicker to the rarer medium, and it bends towards the vertical as you get from the rarer to the thicker, right? So if the isobars were perfect, flawless, then light would level out gradually through. If you pointed a laser up, it would level towards the horizontal until it reached horizontal, and then it would just follow the isobar. However, nothing is perfect. You will always, in every fluid, in every medium, have slight imperfections. That isobar will not be perfectly smooth. And if you run into an imperfection, if the imperfection is such that you run into a rarer medium, then it will point away from the vertical and towards the ground. And if you run into a thicker medium, it will turn towards the vertical and into the ground, right? So no matter how perfect you set up the experiment, you will always, even if you do your best to align it with the isobar in a perfectly still atmosphere, which atmosphere is not, you will still get that effect of it will just go through the horizontal and still wind up pointing at the ground. Right? That's the problem of kind of creating a simple model to explain something, but then forgetting to account for the imperfections that you have removed from the model when you are trying to make conclusions about what will happen to reality. Yes, you can take them out to see what would happen on average, but you need to take them into account to see what would really happen. I hope I was clear.
Yeah, I mean, the point is that when we're talking about on the average, yes, we're talking about a simple. We're trying to talk about a simple model, and one appreciates that there is that all the other things are also going to be there, the heat shimmer and everything else, so that the overall result is that there's always going to be some degree of something going on, but on the average it's going to be pretty dang close to flat.
No, on the average it's not. On the average there's temperature inversions, there's heat going from bottom to top, there's density columns, all sorts of stuff going on that you guys for whatever reason are removing.
You don't think that would all normalize in generally one direction?
No. It's never
the temperature gradient always, when I use my phone, always, every time shows lower pressure at the ground and higher above it.
Well, it's I'm saying it's
at
the
least under normal conditions. So there's a predominance of density towards the ground, right?
Seems like the perfect place to test this theory would be like the Bonneville salt flats.
Nah, well, I guess if you get the temperatures right.
So it's the reason that on any given day, if you go to the same location, same height, observer height, and same distance, you're gonna get a different observation to the plane series point. Okay, because your temperature is constantly changing. Maybe the water is colder one day than the next. Maybe the air temperature is warmer the next than it was the day before.
That's
Right?
testable.
All those. Yeah, it's testable, but we know that. We know this is what's causing the different. If you see an inferior mirage one day and a superior mirage the next, or skewing or looming or whatever you want to call it, it's all due to the change in density, right? We
So
know
generally
there's
predictable. Generally
we know there's
predictable,
variable.
and it follows
No,
a
it's
pattern.
not. It's not predictable.
Really?
You would have
So
to predict it. To predict it, you would have
So
to
on
have.
a warm day, you see different things. You know, if you see a warm day with cold water, you see different effects every time.
Yes.
Yeah, same temperature. Like, let's say it's 100 degrees out and the water's 80.
Yeah, but that's never the case, is it?
No, that is the case frequently.
No,
What
it's
are you
not.
talking?
Well, first of all,
80
water
degree
temperature
water and 100
varies
degree air. That
depending
happens
on
all the time.
depth. Water temperature varies depending on depth, and it's
Depth?
constantly
No,
flowing.
it's only the surface that we're worried about.
How do you know it's only the surface?
Oh, because heat from underneath the water is going to radiate out. Okay, you're not able to be communicated with.
I'm just reading something. Anyways, the point that Barney is trying to make is all the little variables and things that cause refraction are being removed, and they're just saying, oh well, if there's one column and one gradient and this and that, you would see the light source or the object perfectly with no refraction. Yeah, in a perfect scenario, call it even in a vacuum, you would. But in a real world, where there's atmosphere, there's temperature, there's supposed gravity, and whatever you want to call as the cause, you have all those things to worry about, and it's never going to be a perfect column.
But isn't there a magnitude of the effects? Like the air pressure is going to make up a certain magnitude of the portion of the total effect. Then temperature is going to make up a certain portion of the total effect, and then humidity will make up a really minor portion of it. I mean, these are things that we do know. And with pressure density, the main thing, the gradient of the atmosphere is going to be the largest single factor, I would think.
Well, it depends on the actual effect you're looking at, Ken. Because some days, some days the differential heating and all of those effects will be much greater. And you get the various types of mirage forming.
Yeah, I mean, I keep on going back to a normal condition, a normalized condition.
On other days, and of course, a lot will depend on where in the world you're doing this. I mean, up here in the UK, we tend to get, relatively speaking, fairly stable water temperatures. Right. And generally, the water temperature and the air temperature are relatively close together. So we tend to get much better seeing than you might get, say, in the tropics or in Florida. Right. Or even on most of the east coast of the US, sort of from Washington down, I think, and probably on the same on the west coast.
Now you could probably do Maine okay.
You know, I because I'm cognizant of the fact that us here in the UK are further north than almost all of the major cities in Canada.
Right. I mean, the thing that I keep coming back to is no, we're not going to go out and look for the worst possible refraction conditions because we know that those fuck everything up. So we're not going to go out where the water temperature has a 40-degree differential because that will cause, I'm not even sure, but that will cause, let's say, an inversion.
Yeah, I don't know which way it works, but you're going to get.
So we do go when the water temperature is as close as possible and you don't have a huge temperature differential. That's the best time to do it. You'll get the least of the effect.
Yeah, I mean, of course, ideally, if you're going to do observations, it would be great if you could do observations at the same time every day, and record weather conditions, temperatures, water temperature, all of those other things, so that you can correlate the refraction effects with the other things that are going on that may or may not be causational.
Right, and I'm not going to be able to go, there are variations in the surface temperature of water, but I think the surface temperature that makes up the lion's share. What's happening down deep is not affecting the air temperature much. Water has a good insulating value.
Yeah, I mean, how is the water? How is the water temperature at 10 meters going to affect the air directly above the surface that is transferring heat into or pulling heat out of the air?
Yeah, absolutely won't. Other than possibly being more active, maybe have more currents, thermals, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, but the surface temperature is the important thing.
Hi, it's John again.
Hello, John again.
All right.
Sorry, I couldn't resist that one.
I was just wondering if any of you guys have ever played around with the atmospheric refraction parameters in a curve calculator. Not just set it to the conditions that you're trying to emulate for one observation. Like just change the pressure a little bit, change the temperature a little bit. But what you'll find is the effect of refraction. It really doesn't change very much.
No.
It changes, sure, if you change the pressure, i.e. the density of the air and the temperature, but it's not like you get wildly different values. But I think another thing that would be really helpful, I think, was making long distance observations. Everybody loves to talk about boats disappearing over the horizon, etc., etc. But you do have a problem with the temperature of, as you're saying, the temperature of the air, the temperature of the water. You get much more accurate results if you go to altitude, and you make an observation. Say from one trig point of a mountain to another trig point. Ensuring that your line of sight is horizontal using one of various methods. So if you're on a peak, say, that is lower in elevation than a distant peak, say 30 miles away, and with a zoom you can actually see the trig point of this other mountain that should be higher, and it's not higher. That's quite a hard and fast observation, which carries a lot of weight.
Yeah, I seem to remember something like that, featuring a mountain called Ailsa Craig.
Oh yeah.
And also something from the other side of Edinburgh, from somewhere looking across, which is exactly the same height as the top of the new Forth Bridge.
Yeah, it's a guy called Miles Davis.
Yes.
He's excellent videos. He's on top of a hill, which is he's looking towards the Forth Bridges, and in between him and the Forth Bridges is a monument which is at the same elevation that he's standing on. So that's his horizontal level. The top of the new road bridge is also at the same height, 210 meters. And beyond that, you've got mountains which are thousands of feet high, which are below that level.
I know, it's interesting, isn't it?
It's quite conclusive stuff.
Yes.
You very, very well, very, very thoroughly. There's no there's no room to maneuver in that observation, as far as I'm concerned.
So I just want to so now that I think there's a general consensus that you can have refraction on a flat Earth.
Yes, but we won't see what you won't see what we see.
Okay, well, so that's a tertiary topics, right? So the secondary topic is what's the cause? I said it's temperature. Barney said it's partly temperature, it's partly gravity, and whatever else. Well, according to this article, it's basically temperature. Changes in atmospheric density in the lower air layers, and these variations are strongly dependent upon changes in the air temperature with height in those layers. The superior mirage forms when cold air lies beneath relatively warmer air, a condition known to meteorologists as temperature inversion. The rate of increase of temperature with the height, the temperature gradient, affects how the light rays travel from the object to our eyes, and thus how we see the resulting image pattern. So I do a search for temperature. There's 19 times it's found. I do for gravity, there's 0. So I'm going to keep my contention that temperature has the biggest factor to do with refraction and the gradient.
Well, temperature is not the factor. The temperature has an effect on air pressure, which we can call air density. It's the density of air that is the biggest factor. That's what has the biggest effect on the refractive index of light passing through air.
Right. And that's what I said earlier. And then
what you just said,
what
you just said was that you're sticking with temperature being the biggest factor.
Right, and you just agreed with that, right?
No, I didn't.
No.
What I said, temperature does affect atmospheric pressure, and in this instance, the effect of pressure is that you're talking about different densities of air, density of a medium.
Okay, hold on. So pressure isn't mentioned in this article one time. So why are you talking about pressure?
You said temperature, pressure, density, and then you said, but so I'm maintaining my position that temperature is the biggest factor.
No, I didn't mention pressure once. You mentioned it. I mentioned temperature.
Of the three that are density, pressure, and temperature, only one of them affects refraction directly.
Which is what? It's temperature.
It's density.
But what affects the density? It's temperature.
Now, with the ideal gas law, puts a correlation between density, pressure, and temperature. If you change one, you affect the others, right? So
yeah, okay, go ahead.
So in that respect, yes, if you change the temperature without changing the pressure, then density will necessarily change. And that is the mechanism that you're describing of how temperature affects refraction.
Correct. Right? Because pressure generally doesn't change, right, at the point of refraction. In other words, there's a gradient, but it's so minute that temperature will have a greater effect on the density than the pressure.
So the temperature will have a greater effect locally at the same pressure. However, there is a gradient of pressure regardless of temperature that is at the same time a gradient of density, where temperature is irrelevant in the definition of the gradient, right? And that is simply due to the mechanism of, if you imagine a bunch of cubes and you stack one on top of the other, the cube at the top will not be pressed by any other cube. The cube below it will be pressed by that one cube. The cube below that will be pressed by two cubes, right? So if you stack them up, the one at the bottom will be experiencing the most pressure from everything that's above it.
I thought you were saying pube.
Go ahead.
I thought you were saying pubes. You said cubes, right?
Cubes.
God,
Sorry.
Damn it.
Right?
You and Clifford need to get together and throw back a few beers.
So, if you have that pressure change in the atmosphere, then you will have a density change. We can measure that density, and indeed, both the pressure and density change with height. What is it that affects refraction? It is density. So is refraction affected by this? Yes. Is that a permanent and consistent effect? Yes. You will always have a looming effect, right? Now, when you bring in temperature, you can introduce changes. You can change the overall pressure, moving the gradient up or down. You can have a local change, which is what you're talking. If you add a hot surface or a cold surface, that will affect a thin layer of air in contact with that surface and will slowly dissipate. So you will have a local effect, which might be either strengthening the looming effect or might be an atmospheric inversion weakening the looming effect or even inverting it completely, which is when you get inferior mirages. When you get it strengthening, you will get superior mirages. Right? You will get the super looming effect.
Right.
But
So
the attribution of everything to temperature is erroneous. The temperature does not change refraction. Density changes refraction. Temperature might affect density, but it is not the only thing that affects density.
Right. But in this case, they're saying that the major cause for the density change is temperature. Because when I do a search for gravity, it's 0 hits. When I do a search for pressure, it's 0 hits. But when I do temperature, it's 19 hits. So I'm not trying to be overbearing about it. I'm just saying temperature, in this case, when you're talking about superior mirage and inferior mirage and refraction in general at the surface, temperature will have the biggest impact on that phenomenon.
He just got done explaining to you that temperature has the effect on the density, which is what you're seeing in the situations.
Correct. Temperature is the cause of the change in density, yes.
You know, Chris, if you've got two different locations, you can have two different locations with the same atmospheric pressure and vastly different temperatures, and they will have, because the pressure or the density of the air is the same, the air will have the same refractive index. Did you get that?
Sorry, say it again.
Hey, Dress, welcome in.
If you have two different locations, two geographically separate locations, and they have the same atmospheric pressure, so they have the same density of air, they can have very, very different temperatures. But because the density of the air is the same, the air will have the same refractive index. It will have the same effect on the refraction of light in each location, even though the temperature is very different from one location to the other.
Well, I mean, so in that case, then the only thing that would really generally affect the density would be the temperature. so to use Barney's word, your local atmospheric density is going to be different due to the difference in temperature and the surface temperature, the water temperature, the air temperature, etc.
I'm not sure you're following what I'm saying. I mean,
no, I'm following what you're saying is because the density, because the atmospheric pressure is the same, the density is going to be the same at two different locations, even though the temperature is different. That's not true. The density of the air molecules will be different at those different locations because of the fact that the temperature is different.
No, so look, no. Oh, come on. You can have a different pressure and a different temperature in such a way that the densities are the same. I think that's what John was.
Yeah, but you're talking again such conditions that would be almost impossible. You would have to have every single condition that is a factor the same, and that's virtually impossible to do. Right? Or I mean, or am I wrong? That's just common sense.
I think you need to just characterize them.
And it's not necessarily that all of them have to be the same. They just have to come up with the same result intermixing.
Okay, sorry, I'm back. Somebody just tried to run me over. Sorry, can you repeat that last sentence? Yes, but you're talking about.
Sorry, which person? There was a couple of sentences.
You, Chris. I said that you can have a change in pressure and temperature such that the density remains the same. In which case, you will have a change of temperature without any refraction. I think that's what John was trying to point out.
I don't think so, but I guess in theory I would agree with you.
You don't think so?
I don't think that's what he was trying to point out, but what you said,
okay.
I agree with you in theory, yes.
What I was just saying is that we've established that the main variable that has an influence on the degree of atmospheric refraction is the density of air, which is the pressure of the atmospheric pressure of air. So you can have two.
No. Come on, who keeps saying that? Who was that?
Who's that? I thought we were in. I was really pleased that we were in agreement, Barney.
Yes, but so at first time you said that, I thought you just misspoke because the explanation other than that works. But you're saying that pressure is density, which is wrong, which is thoroughly wrong, right? It is literally like saying temperature is density. That doesn't make sense. Pressure, density, and temperature are three different things.
So where did I go wrong? I'm not clear.
You equated. You keep equating the atmospheric pressure with density.
And what is the difference then between the two?
Density is how much mass there is per volume, and pressure is how much force is applied to a surface.
Won't the two track each other extremely closely in an atmosphere of what we have?
Well, that would depend on the temperature. Come on, guys! It's the ideal gas law.
You can have the same density with different temperature and a different pressure in one area, and the same density with a different temperature and a different pressure in the other area. Versus a high temperature, low pressure area can have the same density as a low temperature, high pressure area. Did I say that right?
Yes, you said it right. And also, you can have a place which has completely uniform pressure and have wildly different densities if the temperatures are wildly different. And you can have an area where the temperature is completely uniform and you still get wildly different densities because the pressure is different.
I've actually got a question on this whole topic, which is, can any of the flat earthers actually state what the relationship is between the density of the atmosphere and what they're seeing? So they can separate out refraction from, illusory effects like mirages.
I guess the answer is no.
Travis could, because he's been watching this a long time.
Well, I don't. I guess I'm the only flat Earth on the panel, but I don't fully understand. Could you reformat the question or restate it in a different way, maybe? Or
You're claiming that there is a specific relationship between the density of the atmosphere and the refraction and what you see, and the fact that different densities cause different refractions. Can you quantify that so you can actually have an expectation of what you're going to observe based on the pressures, the density that you're passing through? Can you calculate that? Can you do anything with that? Can you give us anything that is predictive to support the models you see? Because all I see at the moment is you take observations with pretty mirages and refraction of them. So what?
I mean, if you're asking me personally if I can do that, the answer is maybe, but I've never tried. But what we're talking about, what Barney and I are talking about, what everyone's talking about, it's not a. You said it's a claim. It's not. I mean, it's a claim if you want to call it a claim, but it's a fact that those three things are working together, and that temperature can change the density and pressure and all these things, whatever. But if you're saying, what are you? So you basically, the question is, what are you going to see based upon the conditions?
That's kind of it, but it's a bit more quantitative, because what I'm trying to find out is how you haven't excluded out other possibilities from your calculations, like what we have, which is the curvature, and why we can predict how far we should expect something to start to disappear from the bottom down vaguely. Right. We can definitely see things clearly. When I watch tall ships go out of Southampton, I've watched them sail over the horizon a dozen times or more in my lifetime. And I watched them go up the horizon, go over, and I still see the masts, even though the masts are much thinner than the actual boat themselves. I see those masts sink down. I see the crow's nest go over the horizon, and I see that either with my naked eyes or with binoculars. So I've used both, and I'm seeing the same observation both times. I've seen it multiple times over multiple years. So what I'm asking is, how are you excluding, just based on your observations, without doing the calculations, how can you exclude curves?
Well, we're excluding curve because we're trying to come up with an alternative hypothesis, right? So if there's one hypothesis that's, and I know it's not, I'm using the wrong word, and Quantum Eraser is going to listen and is going to yell at me, but whatever. If your theory or hypothesis, sorry.
He asked, how do you exclude curve, not that you're excluding curve.
How do you exclude curve? Well, we're not necessarily excluding curve. What we're trying to establish is a baseline to say that refraction can block something from the bottom up, and that it's repeatable and testable, which that we have demonstrated. So at that point, you might have a fair claim to say, well, how do you know there's not curve taking effect after that? Well, maybe there is, but that's what we're all trying to come to.
Okay, can I jump in just really quickly?
I just want to finish this point. I would agree things like mirroring and mirage can cut things off, can obscure the bottom of an object, but I don't believe refraction can. I have not seen any evidence of that.
Well, the mirage is refraction.
Yeah, so
I will go with that. I was trying to separate out standard refraction from extreme observations like mirages.
So see, this whole standard refraction thing is, in my opinion, has really done a disservice to the ballers, because the ballers will say, what about standard refraction, or why can't you use it? is because there is no such thing as standard refraction, because every time you go out and you look the same thing, you're going to see something different potentially because of the conditions are different. It's not standard.
Chris, that's why standard refraction is considered an average. It's not.
You can't do that.
Is there
Why can't you?
What part of
is
what
there
I
an average wait, is there an average sea level, an average height of the sea that we use to measure altitude? Like the standard height of sea surface?
I don't know the answer to that, to be honest.
Oh, what's the for the US?
Right? There is. We use it to measure altitude from it. Right? Every altitude that you measure from the altitude of sea level. Now, is there anywhere in the oceans and the seas of the Earth a place where that standard level is absolutely perfectly still at all times, and is that value at all times?
No, but that is the value that they're measuring to. They're not measuring to some 10-foot wave. They're measuring to when it is relatively calm.
No, but when it's relatively calm, you still have tides and stuff like that, which will change the actual height of the water. But the standard is that imaginary height, which is what it would be if there were no external forces on that water.
Yeah.
Right?
I'd actually say the variance in C is more than the variance in refraction.
Well, see, it's really weird to say that because neither of them have anything to do with one another. It's a false equivocation fallacy. And I really think we need to focus on the atmosphere and the different things. So
no.
if you
So
for example,
wait, stop. You have accused me of false equivocation. I want to defeat that immediately. It is exactly the same thing in respect to the claim that there can be no standard refraction because when we look, things change. In that sense, you're saying there can be no standard of water height because when we observe, we see things change.
Exactly.
In that respect, they are in respect of your claim that does not allow for the standard to exist. My claim stands. It is not false equivocation.
Yeah, you're making a claim, Chris, that the standard is worldwide. There's different standards for different atmospheric conditions. So if you're saying standard refraction,
hold on a second. There's a different standard of refraction worldwide.
That would be like saying you're saying that there's the standard refraction is for every condition there is.
No, that's what you're saying.
No, that's what you're saying. That's what you're equating it to, which is a false equivocation on your behalf.
No, it's not. I've not done that at all. The standard refraction
you just said
model is 7.6R across the globe. Do you deny that?
Yeah, it'd be just like saying that there's a standard deviation of the magnetic poles.
So you're actually making
which changes on a freaking daily basis. So
right,
they don't update it they only update it on a yearly basis or on a 4-year basis.
The one that do this really quickly. Go and look at a standard sailor's almanac and look at the refraction when you have it based on latitude and two you have it based on time of year. Well, that's a standard refraction model based on latitude and time of year. Next.
So if I were to say, go get your standard bottle of water, what would you determine a standard bottle of water to be? Water in a fucking bottle, right? You wouldn't question how big the bottle was.
I would ask what
how
size
much
bottle
volume
I
is in the
needed to get
bottle
to be a standard bottle.
Can I just return to the point that I first made when I got back? I was saying, if you play around with the parameters of standard refraction, so we're talking about a standard refraction element of a curve calculator where you can input different air pressures and temperatures and stuff. If you mess around with those parameters, you raise or lower the pressure, you raise and lower the temperature, it really doesn't make very much difference to the amount of atmospheric refraction. So it's not like if you just choose an arbitrary or average value for atmospheric refraction, that's perfectly reasonable, because the day that you go out and make an observation, yeah, the pressure might be different, the temperature might be a bit different, but the amount of refraction is not going to be wildly different from the standard. It's not like it's a it's a useless sort of average to employ.
Well, no, it's totally useless in this case, and that's all my point is. So you can have to Barney, to your point, you can have a standard, and you can call it. You can come up with any numbers and metrics you want and call it your standard. Fine, but so let's just put the.
You seem to be missing that point. It's not just an arbitrary figure chosen out the air. It's an average. It's a
Let him finish his statement, please.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, fine. It's an average, whatever. It's a standard. It's an average. You're not going to apply that real world when you have to look at an actual.
You would. You want to know when you use it? When you ask the question, when should I be able to see something? Well, on average, you'd be able to see it under this condition.
But there is another misunderstanding here, it seems to me. You are assuming that the standard refraction refers to a value. It doesn't. It refers to a model. It is the standard model of refraction.
Okay, so let me ask this: does the model change? Does the standard refraction model change?
No.
Right. So it's a one outcome.
One description, right, of how refraction works.
Right. It's one description of how refraction works. We have many descriptions of how refraction works. So let's just let me ask a couple questions. Okay, I have a picture. I have a series of pictures on the screen being shared. Is this standard refraction that we're seeing here? All these different.
I don't know. Are they standard pictures?
Hey.
Okay, so I heard no, and I heard I don't know. So
is it a standard picture?
Refraction that we see here.
Is it a standard picture, or is it an extreme picture?
I'm going to ask you a question. What was the refractive index for each of those pictures?
I don't know. I'm asking you. Is this standard or is this not standard? Let's look at this one. Is this standard? Hold on. Is this standard? All this refraction we're seeing and mirroring, is that standard?
Yes, in proportion to the refractive index.
Okay. Is this standard? All this 10, 12 miles away, all this mirroring we see, is that standard refraction?
Yes.
I'm going to disagree with that.
No. Okay, fair enough.
Standard refraction is done at a specific temperature, a specific air density.
Yeah,
exactly. It is settled at one point.
No, okay. So wait. That's a different thing. That is called refraction under standard atmospheric conditions, and okay. I believe it's STP, right? Standard temperature and pressure.
And what's that? Do you happen to know?
What is the standard? I don't know what the standard temperature and pressure is. I know the pressure is
50 degrees Celsius, and
it's one atmosphere of pressure. That's literally how the value for 1 atmosphere of pressure is defined.
Typically, I've seen 1,000 millibars and 15 degrees Celsius.
What's that in Fahrenheit? Do you know?
No idea.
Never clue.
So is 1 atmosphere of pressure, is that the standard atmosphere of pressure?
Yeah. Yes. So yes, STP is literally the standard temperature and pressure. Now, air under the standard temperature and pressure has a refractive index. If you're talking about the refraction under the standard and standard temperature and pressure, there is none. Why? It is because it's going through a completely homogeneous medium where the temperature and pressure are constant, therefore the density is constant, right? So,
see, so my point
refraction under standard temperature and pressure is 0.
He's a homogeneous person. He's a very smart homo.
Are those standard eyeglasses, Carlos?
You roboted out.
I was just being
Okay,
smart.
so when I don't know about other people, when I talk about standard refraction, I'm talking about the commonly accepted scientific law of refraction, how refraction is described in optics. That is a standard model. In the same way that we have a standard model of particle physics and the standard model of cosmology and the standard model of mechanics and stuff like that. That is standard refraction when I use it. If somebody else uses it differently, that might be on them. But yes, what we are viewing in all of those images is described by the standard model of refraction.
Yeah, but so Chris, what are you trying to point out? Which one of those images is the standard magnification?
No idea what you're talking about.
What do you mean? There's got to be a standard magnification level.
Why would there be a standard magnification level?
Well, because refraction is going to change upon the magnification.
I don't know what you're talking about. What magnification of what?
Refraction doesn't change the magnification.
No, I said magnification changes the visual appearance of refraction.
Or the magnification of the zoom.
Yes.
In the camera. Yeah, well, I think. Well, maybe I would say
no,
what is the native focal length of the camera? What's zero?
Good
Maybe
question.
that's what.
I don't know.
No, the refraction won't change. You will just see more of it or less of it depending on your focal length. Right. If you zoom in to something that's being refracted, you're just going to see the refraction easier than you did when you didn't.
That's false. If you're not zoomed in, you don't see as much refraction as you do if you're zoomed in.
You said zoomed in twice. Do you want to repeat yourself?
I said if you're zoomed out, if you're not zoomed out, if you're just and you zoom in, you'll pick up more refraction. You'll pick up more miraging.
That's basically what I just said. You're not going to pick up. It's not that there's more refraction. You're just going to pick up the refraction you couldn't see because you weren't zoomed in.
Well, which is it?
The same thing. Which is what?
Maxwell, it will depend on whether by zooming in you are effectively looking through a longer distance of atmosphere to whether you will see whether you will just see the refraction effects that were already there magnified, or whether you will see different effects because you are effectively looking through more, a longer distance of atmosphere. It really depends on that situation, because a lot of people will zoom in and then point the camera somewhere different so that you are then looking through more rather than looking through the same amount.
If you look at some of these videos where they're like, for instance, roads, highways, where they're not zoomed in, and then they zoom in, and as all I see is mirroring and refraction and light bending and mirages.
Yeah,
you get a very distorted picture of what you're actually focused on.
It looks more because because you've magnified everything.
Right.
So that is an effect of magnifying the distortion rather than the distortion being worse. If you literally zoom in, if you took the wide field and if you had unlimited resolution and you literally cropped it in rather than change the focal length, you would and then increased the image size from the crop back up to match the full size, you would see the same level. You would see exactly the same change in the detail of the atmospheric refraction that you are looking at from whatever cause.
So there's another point.
Is there a camera that does that?
Alan,
is there a camera that gets rid of? So is there a camera that gets rid of that?
No.
No, the problem is, of course, that we don't have cameras with unlimited resolution, so it's very difficult to take a very wide angle rectilinear lens. For example, the widest that I can think of is the Canon 11mm that is about £2,500. That fits on that covers the 35mm frame size, but we don't have a camera that has the resolution that you can then crop that to the same field of view as putting a 600mm lens on it. What happens is, unfortunately, the resolution breaks down before you get there. Were you able to get there, you would see exactly the same as if you used the 600mm lens, providing you do not move the camera sensor. And one other thing that I have found in my other hobby of competitive target shooting is that the better the quality of the lenses you are using, generally speaking, they give you higher angular resolution, and you can then see more mirage effects, especially the shimmer effect that you get when looking across a relatively short distance of damp grass on a warm morning. On one occasion, I did a coaching course, and the guy that was instructing was the chief wind coach for the British national team for the Palmer match, which is shot at 800 to 1200 yards, and the spotting scope he had, by the time you added the body and the eyepiece together, was about £9,000. And on a day when my spotting scope showed nothing at 600 yards, you could see the air shimmer and the slightly rising heat haze being pushed along by the breeze on a day that I would have called cold. So that's what happens with magnification. The more magnification you do, and the higher the resolution of it, the more of the movement you can see when that movement is very small.
Great. So we're living in a mirage.
Pretty much all the time. It's just that we can't. It's just that we can't see it most of the time because we don't have the angular resolution to do so.
So here's a question: if we went somewhere like the Dead Sea, which is 400 or so meters below sea level, so what's that, 1,300 or so feet, and we were at sea level, and we're taking shots down through the atmosphere, at say a 45-degree angle out into the distance. Would you expect things to disappear sooner, Chris, or shimmer sooner, or have more effect sooner? Would you expect that your viewing distance to be shorter, for instance? Your how far you can see the horizon or the horizon line.
I wasn't listening. Sorry, can you repeat it?
That's okay. So say we went to somewhere like the Dead Sea, which is about 1,300 feet below sea level. And we're up at sea level. So say we're at Masada, for instance, which is about at sea level.
So we're talking about average sea level for the rest of Earth rather than sea level at the side of the Dead Sea.
Yeah, because obviously that's way below our average sea level.
Yeah, okay. I was just checking which sea level you were implying, because obviously at the Dead Sea, local sea level will be at the surface of the at the average surface.
No, I'm talking about but because it's the lowest point of land, I think, below sea level.
Yeah. So if we're standing at WSG 84.
Yeah,
level.
Yeah. So we're at WSG 54 level, that 84 level, which is about the height of Masada, and Masada is about sort of 1,400 feet above the floor of the Dead Sea Valley.
Okay.
And we're taking a shot out into the distance at a declining angle. So we're pointing the camera down to go through as much of that thick atmosphere as possible. The question I had to Chris: would you expect your horizon to be your viewing distance to be less than if you were just taking across a normal level sea, where you are, for instance?
No, more.
Why? I'm looking through thicker atmosphere.
You're actually looking through less thick atmosphere. You're saying 13, if you're at the sea versus 1,300 feet above the sea?
Yeah, because my 1,300 feet above the sea is at sea level. Because I'm talking about the Dead Sea in Israel, which is 1,300 feet below sea level. So that's about the thickest atmosphere I can think of to look through. And if I'm 1,300 feet up at sea level, and I'm looking down into the Dead Sea, would you expect my viewing distance to be less because I'm looking through much thicker atmosphere?
No, you would see more the higher you are, because the atmosphere is less dense the higher you go up.
But I'm at sea level, Chris.
But you're at sea level, but the
I'm at sea level, and it'll be 14.6 psi or 14.7 psi or somewhere around that. And when I go 1,000 feet down, it's going to be more than 14.7 psi.
Right. So you're looking so the lower you go.
So the atmosphere is thicker below me than it is at sea level.
Yes.
You're giving a false equivocation, Druss. What are you comparing the visualization of?
I'm just saying, but if I'm looking at a flat, if I'm looking horizontally at average sea level, so I'm on, say, shores of the Atlantic or wherever, versus looking down towards the Dead Sea from an elevated position, should I be able to see further, or should I be able to see less? Because the flat Earth argument is the reason we can't see that far and the reason the sun disappears is because of the atmosphere getting in the way and we can't see through it. So I'm trying to find the thickest atmosphere I can, and obviously the deeper the depression, the thicker the atmosphere, because the higher the column of air.
Well, you don't know that for sure. I mean, the atmosphere could have the same.
I can go and look it up, Maxwell. You're being fucking pedantic. Why is it an equivocation?
Because the atmosphere, the density of the atmosphere in the Atlantic could be the same as what you're looking through at that particular time. It doesn't equivocate.
The atmospheric pressure on the shore of the Dead Sea is something like 15.5 psi, as opposed to 14.6, 14.7.
You'd have to be in a hurricane.
That's pressure.
I mean, listen. I'm okay with accepting the and they call it an analogy or whatever it is. The question, I'm okay with the question as is. If you're 1,300 feet higher than the point you are 1,300 feet below, you're going to see more 1,300 feet higher. That's the answer I can give you based on that question.
Would I see the same amount as I would expect to see at sea level, at average sea level?
Same amount as what?
Same distance.
Same distance if you're looking down. If you're looking down at the Dead Sea, 1,300 feet above, or if you're looking straight across at sea level.
So I'm looking down towards the horizon, and I'm looking as far towards the horizon as I can. From 1,300 feet up, I'm looking through all this atmosphere, which evidently obscures and blocks stuff and stops me seeing too far. Yeah, that is 1,300 feet below sea level, so 1,300 feet below the normal calculations you're taking. What I'm asking you is, should I see less far through that thicker atmosphere, Or should I see the same amount as if I was at sea level, or should I see further?
I thought I answered that question. So
I didn't hear your answer.
Okay, so let me go through the scenarios. If you're standing at the Dead Sea, 1,300 feet below sea level, you're going to see less than you're seeing at sea level looking down at the Dead Sea. You'll see more, but you won't see as much if you're at sea level looking straight across a body of water.
Interesting.
Because I can tell you why. Trust you.
I'm
Why?
confused here. If you're looking at a certain distance, say 1,300 meters, you're looking off at 1,300 meters. If you're looking through, if the density is all the same at 1,300 meters, it's going to be this. You're going to see the same thing because you're still looking 1,300 meters through the same density, whether it's horizontal, vertical, or freaking at an angle. It doesn't matter. You're still looking at the same distance through the same
I'm not
density.
talking about I'm talking about Chris's model, not yours.
Yeah, hold on. Let me just do a quick drawing to help illustrate what we're all talking about.
I get where Druss is going. According to Druss, if you're at 1,300 feet looking down into the valley of the Dead Sea, in Chris's model, you wouldn't be able to see as far because there's denser atmosphere there.
Exactly.
And remember that 1,300 feet above the level of the Dead Sea puts you at average mean sea level for the rest of Earth.
So
whatever shape it might be.
So if we can see a huge wave at that height, because according to the standard model that Chris is, or some of the flat earthers purport, the reason we can't see infinitely into the distance on a flat plane is because of the atmosphere blocking us. So at sea level we're blocked to about 3.5 miles. Yeah, we can't see really much beyond that unless atmospheric conditions come into play. Could be a little bit less, could be a little bit more, could be quite a bit more, depending on it. So what I'm saying is I'm at sea level, so surely if I look directly ahead, I shouldn't see much more than about 3.5 miles in front of me. And if I look down, I should see less because I'm going through thicker atmosphere. Yeah, so I'm at sea level, 1,300 feet above the Dead Sea. I think I'll see fucking miles. And I think this is an interesting experiment to say I think you're wrong.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Can now.
Yeah, so I'm doing just a quick drawing. Obviously, it's not the scale or anything like that, but basically, let me screen share again. Oops, one more thing.
Did anyone see Anthony Riley dodging like fuck to get away from Tony on Ranties? That was so funny.
What the hell?
I saw him leave a hangout so that he didn't have to talk to Bob yesterday.
He literally spent 2 hours trying to change the question because he knew he'd fucked up.
To be fair, I wouldn't want to be grilled by Bob the Science Guy.
All right, so this drawing is total shit, but I hope it gets the point across. Because I've thought about this before, and this is my understanding of what's going on. So here we have, we've got somebody standing 1,300 feet, call it sea level, okay? And
so we have someone standing at 0.
Mm-hmm. If you want to call it 0, fine, sea level. And here we have someone standing 1,300 feet below sea level, okay? Right, so this arrow.
No, we don't care about anybody standing at 1,300 feet below sea level. This has nothing to do with my question or analogy.
Well, no, this is the Dead Sea. This is the Dead Sea. This blue line.
It's just on top of the cliff that I care about. I agree that at that level.
But that's not true. So I have to show you why you won't see more standing at the Dead Sea than you will standing at the cliff. Okay. So what's going on is standing at the.
Chris, you're answering a question he didn't ask. Can you talk to him about the observer at sea level?
But Yeah, because he's claiming you'll see more at the standing on the Dead Sea, and that's not the case.
No, he said, will you see less if you are standing at sea level looking down at the horizon towards an elevation like the Dead Sea?
Right, and I'm saying you'll see more.
But you're looking through more atmosphere, though.
No, you're not. Look, okay, the gray lines are the atmosphere. Okay, now I
We
drew
don't,
them.
Chris, we don't care about the person at the bottom. We only care about the person at the top.
So then
And when
who are
they
you
are looking
comparing the
straight
person at
and
the
when
top
they are
to?
looking down.
So I'm talking about if I was standing on Lake Chesapeake or whatever it's fucking called, and I'm looking out into the distance, and I can see, 3.5, 4 miles, from shore level at my height. Yeah. Now that's less dense atmosphere than we have around the Dead Sea, because the Dead Sea is so much further about. And I've just checked the average pressure, and it's way higher. It's a good 36 torr plus more. It's a good 10%, 5 to 10% more on average than what we see at normal sea level. So you're not going to get the 2. So we can take. So the problem I've got. So if that's Chesapeake Bay,
sorry, Jeff.
Yeah. So
I can get a little bit about what he's got messed up here fixed for you. Chris, make a pool to the left of the green line, and that'll represent a body of water at sea level, and then compare that to looking at a body of water within a valley.
No, I'm doing both scenarios. Okay, hold on.
I just gave you a way to do them both.
Well, I'm doing them both. Okay, just let me get this out. I've been able to. All right. So above the yellow line is one scenario, and below the yellow line is the second scenario. Standing at sea level, looking down at the Dead Sea, 1,300 feet below, you're going to see further because you're looking through less atmosphere because there's a gradient. If you're standing now, the second scenario, you're standing at sea level, you're looking out. Okay, you're going to be blocked by the thicker part of the atmosphere sooner than you would otherwise. Maybe and I'm just throwing this out here.
That doesn't make sense. If that top line next to the green line there is the same density as the lowest line in your second model, what you have drawn doesn't make sense. Of course, I'm going to be looking through more atmosphere because I'm having to go through the.
No, you're not, because you're starting at a less dense column. You're looking through.
No, I'm not. I'm starting at the densest. I'm starting at sea level, which is as dense as the second picture.
Aren't you looking down? You're on a cliff. You're looking down.
Yes, and the air, the density of the air starts at the densest level you have at sea level.
Right. So there's more. It's more dense.
So if I go down 20 meters, it's denser. If I go down another 20 meters, it's denser. If I go down another 20 meters, it's denser. You are drawing a line through increasingly dense atmosphere, which the first line, which we will call A, equals the bottom line on your second diagram. So the thickest atmosphere on your second diagram is the point we start, and you're saying, I draw a diagonal line. Of course, you're going to be looking through less atmosphere than when you're looking straight across at sea level. How can that be when A, the top line on model on the first diagram, is equal to the bottom line on your second diagram? That makes no sense, Chris.
It's not equal.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Why?
Is yours okay? Scenario A, I'm standing on the cliff.
Yeah, 0 feet. 0 feet.
Correct. God, who's fucking Jesus Christ? Who's slamming a teaspoon into a cup? Arwen. Is Arwen on
making tea? So that's what he's doing. I can tell he's making tea because of the sound that the liquid makes.
We'll go on mute. All right. So I'm standing 1,300 feet higher than person in scenario B.
No, you're not. You're standing at the same elevation as the person in scenario B. Yeah.
Okay, so the scenarios aren't the same then, you're saying, right?
No, the scenarios are exactly the same because where that green line is 0 feet sea level. Yep. What the blue line in there is minus 1,300 feet from sea level.
That's why I put a pool of water at the green line to the left, and then do your.
But then it's not the scenario he described of looking down on a cliff at the Dead Sea.
The Dead Sea, again, I will repeat this really slowly for you. The Dead Sea is 1,300 feet below sea level.
Right. So this is sea level. The green line is sea level.
Yes.
The blue line is 1,300 feet below it. Where am I going wrong?
So scenario B is you on the seashore at 0 feet, so at Chesapeake Bay or wherever you want to be. So that blue line, if you put it up next to the green line, so if you put scenario B next to the green line A, yeah, that is me then looking the other way through the atmosphere. So what you're trying to tell me is that if I look to the left,
So we started out with one scenario. Now you're adding scenario. I'm
not. I have stuck to exactly the same fucking scenario, Chris. You're just not listening.
No, you said if you're standing at the Dead Sea, you can see further.
Yeah, because you're looking. No, I did not say that. I said I think in my model I will see further because actually it's curved that's blocking most of this, not
right.
refraction.
I'm telling you why you wouldn't see further.
So what I'm saying to you is, and the question I was actually asking you, which you're trying to get away from, is that if I'm looking through thicker atmosphere, which is scenario A, why am I not seeing
my drawing is a little bit better
distance than scenario B? Why aren't I seeing less distance than scenario B? I'm looking through more.
You see my drawing, Chris? Chris, you see my drawing?
Hold on.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, I see it.
So you see the observer, he's at the top of the hill at sea level, and you have two lines of observation. The one line is going horizontal, and that line is looking through the atmosphere at the pressure and thickness of sea level. Now, line number 2 is looking down, and as you're looking down, as it goes down, the atmosphere is thicker and thicker. That's what he's talking about. And you say that you will see further, but then the atmosphere is thicker when you're looking at line number 2 in that direction.
Okay, now okay, hold on. Now let's just clarify a few things. Okay, now draw stick guy at the crevice of the bottom part of where the Dead Sea would start.
We're not doing anything. Why do you keep introducing this? There's nothing to do with anybody being at the bottom of the valley. Nothing.
Okay, then this is something I'm talking about.
No, you can use Carlos's straight line A, number 1. That's representing you looking out at sea level. Yeah. Line number 2 is you looking through denser atmosphere below sea level. And what you're trying to say is that you will see further with line 1 than you will with line 2, according to your model, because I'm looking through more atmosphere, and it's the more atmosphere that hides stuff at distance, according to you.
Okay, you're gonna. This is why I thought your question had to do with the person at the top and a person at the bottom, because otherwise it's nonsensical. If you got one guy looking straight out, you're gonna see what you see.
So let's do me a favor, Carlos. On your paper, just draw a sea level just below the top of the hill there. So that's going to be our sea level normal, and so we don't get Chris confused, because obviously this is hard for him.
All right.
And then we've got a line 2, which is looking down to the Dead Sea, which is the actual 1,300 feet below sea level. I don't know why this is so hard to understand. I really don't. Am I explaining this badly, guys?
Well, you were, because
I get it. I think it's not that difficult.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect. So there you go. So now forget about looking down into the Dead Sea Valley. Yeah. First of all, we're just going to say we're going to pretend the sea is actually currently 1,300 feet higher than it currently is. Or we're actually looking at another piece of sea, which is very close, which is at sea level. Yeah. So on line 1, normally, to the horizon, if you're 6 footish or so, you'll see 3.5, maybe 4 miles on average. Yeah. And then up.
Wait, say that last part. I'm sorry. Say that last part again.
You'll see however far it is to the horizon. So normally somewhere.
Well, we're
between
seeing
3
way
miles.
past the horizon, so that's not correct at all. But I don't know if that's important.
Okay, so what stops us seeing stuff a long way away?
Atmosphere.
Okay, so the thicker the atmosphere, the less distance we should be able to see.
Correct.
Here's a question. If it is the atmosphere, why doesn't it just gradually starts fading out? Why don't we get a sharp
I don't want to deflect
line at
this
the
at the
horizon?
moment, Carlos.
Okay, okay.
No, it
Sorry.
absolutely fades out.
He's going to really want to get away from this.
Chris, stay on topic.
Yeah.
Don't
So,
I'm answering Carlos's question.
No, I know.
Carlos retracted his question.
No, he didn't retract it.
He did actually. I said,
well,
don't.
I answered it post retraction. How about
anyway,
that?
That's fine. That doesn't matter. So what I'm saying is, with line 2 looking down into the Dead Sea Valley, looking through much thicker atmosphere as we get towards the bottom of that, starting at the thickness of the atmosphere that we have at sea level, would you not expect us to have much less viewing distance?
I'm not following. This doesn't make any sense. So you you're on the same drawing. You have a sea level where there's supposed to be sea, but then below that, I'm supposed to be looking at a valley or something.
Oh, for fuck's sake, Chris, are you really that fucking thick? So scenario 1 is the sea level at the top of the cliff. Scenario 2 is the sea level at the bottom of the cliff. Can you cope with those two facts? Can you cope with
He's
that?
at 14.7.
Yeah, but if there's in scenario 1, is there actually supposed to be a sea that you're looking out into?
No,
You're looking over a sea. Yes, yeah, that's fine. You're looking over sea. Yeah, it doesn't. In your model, it doesn't matter whether I'm looking over sea or not, because if the atmosphere is what's blocking me, the atmosphere is what's blocking me. So it shouldn't. The land sitting underneath me or the sea sitting underneath me should actually matter fuck all. Unless you can explain why having that line there or not having that line there would dramatically change what I'm seeing.
So what's the question?
So whether we're looking out over a sea or land, or whether we're just looking over a valley, which is way below sea level, which is what the Dead Sea is. Yeah, it shouldn't make any difference to the distance that I see because I'm looking through the same thickness of atmosphere. So whether I've got land below me or sea below me or not, it should be exactly the same. If atmosphere is the cause of the retardation of, if atmosphere is the cause of how far we can see, let's not use any big words.
What's the question? So,
if I'm looking at atmosphere at say 100 feet, so say I'm on a plateau at 100, say 1,000 feet. I'm on this flat plateau at 1,000 feet. Yeah, and I look out into the distance. And according to you, because the atmosphere is thinner at 1,000 feet, I should see further. Yes.
Yes.
So if I'm at sea level, I can't see as much as I can at 1,000 feet because it's thicker. If I'm 1,000 feet below sea level, I can't see as far as I could at sea level or 1,000 feet above sea level.
Yes.
Okay. So if I'm looking down into that valley, yeah, even though I've got elevation, I shouldn't be able to see that far because, you know, I'm looking through thicker atmosphere. So if stuff's disappearing at somewhere between, you know, 3, 5, 6 miles, whatever it is, that's kind of where I'd start to expect things to start disappearing on average.
Okay.
Okay. So my question is, when I'm sitting up at the top of Masada, why can I see for 20 or 30 miles through that atmosphere quite happily?
Because that's just the amount of atmosphere that allows you to see that far. I don't. This is a really weird line of questioning. I mean, we've got.
So you obviously, so you don't know, and you're just going to say that
we have plenty of evidence. Hold on, we have plenty of photos and videos showing things being blocked out by the atmosphere.
No, that's your assumption.
No, it's not an assumption. It's a cold hard fact. I can bring up photos right now.
I think I have just.
And those videos are blocked out.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Oh my God.
Are they being blocked out from the bottom up, Chris, from the atmosphere?
Hold on. Let's just bring up an actual photo. and cut out this theory nonsense. Okay, if I do this, if you do that, okay.
Answer my question. Are you talking about
No.
mirroring?
No. Here's what I'm talking about. Okay. Here's the same.
You're just talking about haze.
Just let me get to the point, please, so I can debunk Druss's supposed debunk. All right, same observation height, same distance, different conditions. Where's this building in this image? Where are these objects in this image? Where's the detail of this building here? The detail of this clock tower or whatever the hell that is here?
We're not seeing anything.
Well, I'm screen sharing, so I don't know. Maybe you have to click on my name or
something.
something.
That's aberrant atmospherics taken at the same elevation. Don't care. I'm talking about the fact of what we can see when we're looking down 1,300 feet.
When are you doing this? Are you doing this?
Sorry?
Is this a real scenario that you've done?
Yeah, I've been to Masada.
And you look down 1,300 feet?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's the point? We know that atmosphere blocks stuff out. So if that's your contention, then you're wrong.
So why isn't it blocking it out when that atmosphere is thicker and denser and over water?
Because
why can I see so far? Because my explanation is I have more elevation, ergo I can see over more curvature. Your explanation is, well, atmosphere blocks you seeing stuff. Yet I will beg you to find a day when you cannot see the valley floor and out into the distance from the top of Masada. It's an amazing view.
So I think one thing that Chris has
something we could look at, that would be much better. But
Chris, one thing I think you can see with these images, like the top image, it looks like the buildings are elongated. So you've got some mirroring going on there. The bottom image, I think we're talking about the shore, right?
Is this from the same location?
Yes.
Wow. Where do you get these pictures from?
This is Ranty's.
Interesting.
So I'm just not sure the line of questioning, because the answer is you see what you can see because the atmosphere allows you to see that far for some reason. There's obviously
so your answer is reasons.
No, my answer is the atmosphere. You can see that far because the atmosphere isn't dense enough or thick enough or hazy enough on those particular times you went.
Really?
So the atmosphere is changing in density now? Even at sea level?
Yeah, I'm looking through much more dense atmosphere, yet I can see miles and miles and miles.
Okay, can we kind of walk back from the confrontation a little bit? Sure. There are two effects which are being equivocated here, and yes, you can get a collusion from the atmosphere if the atmospheric conditions are, as you said, obscuring things by covering them up. If you have more particulates in the air, if you have more humidity in the air, yes, your visibility will decrease. It can decrease to as little as 1 or 2 meters, right?
Yeah. In this case, you've got mirror.
That is not what we are talking about when we are talking about things disappearing from sight because being hidden by the curve or because they are going behind the horizon. Or is it, Chris?
We don't disagree with that. It's what flat Earth proposers are claiming is that because the atmosphere is thicker as it gets closer to sea level, that is why we can't see as far. So why can we see further when we look down into even thicker atmosphere from Masada? Is the question.
The claim is somewhat accurate, right? You will get, for example, more of Rayleigh scattering. You get the sfumato effect when looking into the distance of mountains looking bluer and bluer and bluer and bluer, even when you have clear seeing, right? Even when you have no mist or no particulates, or like if you have no visible occlusion. And yes, eventually at an infinite distance, not an infinite distance, but at a sufficient distance, everything will turn just sky blue and you will lose any vision.
Yeah. We are. I don't think we're arguing against that. The point being is that the flat Earth would have us believe that that generally on a clear day we can't see past, if you are, average 1.8 meters height, we can't see past a distance of 5 or 6 kilometers because of the thickness of the atmosphere.
And that's exactly why I asked Chris Berry to clarify. Is he talking about that? And in that respect, that the atmosphere, if it's foggy enough or if it's misty enough, or will obscure things while looking through it, that we cannot see infinitely far through?
Yes, I clarified that.
Chris?
Yes.
You'll have to repeat it, Barney, because he doesn't listen to anything unless you tell him twice.
I think I've said it 3 times so far and got an answer from everybody except for Chris.
Yeah, well, you keep getting interrupted, so sorry. It's hard to follow the line of questions.
Yeah. So there are two different effects that we can see when we talk about things disappearing, right? One effect is things being hidden by the horizon, disappearing crisply from bottom up through what I think is atmospheric refraction, and the other is obscuration by the particulates in the atmosphere, right? Hiding things. Yes. Which one of those are you talking about when you invoke a denser atmosphere?
Well, in the case of what Druss is asking, his question is referring to your second scenario, the particulates, haziness, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that wouldn't cause an object being obstructed from the bottom up, though.
Well, that's why Barney outlaid 2 scenarios. The first one was obstruction bottom up due to refraction. The second was obfuscation due to, or excuse me, what's the word? Obstruction or whatever due to atmospheric particulates and those kind of things.
Okay, and what on a clear day, what would you estimate that effect would be? How far should you be able to see horizontally, just through the average thickness of the atmosphere?
Well, it's going to depend on the viewer height and your atmospheric conditions.
Okay, the viewer height is going to affect the air density, right?
Yes.
So you will have less atmosphere between you and that thing, even though you have more distance. So you'll be able to see farther horizontally, right?
The higher you go.
The higher you go.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I can agree with that. But when you look down, you will be looking through the same density of atmosphere,
But you
more or
aren't.
less.
No, but you aren't. You're skipping, however far down, whatever angle you're looking at, you're skipping that first. Call it. Let's say you're looking 10 miles away, and you're looking down at a 45-degree angle, until from the directly below you to that 45-degree point, you're basically skipping all of that dense atmosphere.
How are you skipping it?
Because you're above it. You're not looking at it. You're not looking. Excuse me. You're not looking through it. You're above it.
As you're traveling down, then you're starting to get thicker and thicker, right?
The further out you go and the closer to the ground you go, yeah, it's going to get thicker and thicker.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, I can agree with that. That's why when we look at the Earth from space, we see more or less the entirety of the Earth instead of just seeing a tiny circle at the middle and having everything be blued by the atmosphere between us, right?
Well, I don't know about all that, but if you say so, I mean.
Because we're looking at a steeper angle, and things get bluer as you approach the real surface. Okay.
Right.
How does that point or affirm the flat Earth? Why?
Well, it doesn't affirm flat Earth. It's just a an argument as to why things disappear.
But that still doesn't explain looking down into the Dead Sea Valley from Masada, where
Well, yeah,
you're
I
at
do.
sea,
They talked
where
about
you're
that.
where you're at sea level and you're looking down into progressively thicker atmosphere. You said you go up 1,300 feet, you'll be able to see further. Why
We just talked
can you
about
not
that.
see further when you are at sea level and you're looking when you're looking down through another 1,300 feet of atmosphere? Because
I would actually agree with Chris on that. It would slightly decrease your distance of viewing, but not as much as. Oh, is it? No. So yeah, I would. Okay, I would agree with Chris in his earlier statement of, well, that would depend on the local atmospheric conditions about how much particulates there are in the air at that point.
But
why? Barney, that's true. But you could argue. But I'm still correct in the call it general argument of why you could see more, because it's assuming the conditions are generally the same, or from bottom to top, there's a gradient and all that. The angle of incidence that you're looking at, you're gonna skip all that atmosphere that's below you when you're looking out over something.
You're not going to skip all of that atmosphere. You are still starting at the same level of density that you would be when you're looking horizontally over sea level, right?
Yeah,
so your starting
that's the whole
position
point
is
of going there.
Yeah, your starting position is the same as though you're at sea level, and it only gets worse from there.
Correct. So
this
why
is a
would you
picture.
not?
Unfortunately, I can't find my own photos, which is really fucking me off, by the way. But this is a picture taken from the northern side of Masada through one of the battlement windows. Okay, you're looking about 20 odd miles across that valley. That's the Dead Sea there in the distance, and there are the mountains in the distance.
Yeah, good. So you see how towards the end of the mountains it's getting all hazy and hard to recognize, and there's no detail.
Yeah, that's a long way further than you ever see at sea level, which means that your theory makes no mistake.
How far is this?
If I'm looking down to the bottom of that, so I'm looking down at the bottom of that image, that's about, I think, 25, 30 miles away.
Okay,
I can go look it up and get something a bit more accurate.
Pictures of Chicago skyline from over 50 miles away, almost 60 miles. So
that clear?
Only high up in the buildings.
And where's anything disappearing from the bottom up?
Well, the halves of the buildings are disappeared.
No. On this picture here, I'm looking further. Why isn't stuff disappearing from the bottom up?
Because you're higher up. You're at a different angle.
So it's not air pressure that makes things disappear bottom first.
No, yeah. If you were down
on the observation, not the air density that makes things.
No,
disappear.
listen. If you were down on the ground, you're going to be looking through more direct atmosphere.
No, but I'm looking through the same amount of direct atmosphere as you would be looking at sea level.
No, you're not.
Or you're looking through more.
Fucking out. You are. In fact, as I look down into the valley, I'm looking at more.
Yeah, but you're missing the fact that the valley is below the sea level.
Yeah,
that's
exactly the reason I chose it, Chris, because it points out the error of
why you keep saying sea level. No, the reason the mountain.
Sorry, that was me being silly. I was gesticulating with my mouse at the sort of the horizontal range in front of me that I can clearly see without anything disappearing from the bottom. The fact that I can see all the way down into the bottom of the valley and there's nothing disappearing from the bottom. And I can continue looking at and nothing is disappearing from the bottom.
Yeah,
so that's
angle,
one thing. The second thing is the distance I can actually see. Now, I think I can see that far because I have elevation. Yeah. And according to what you told me, and the 16 plus times that I asked you, is the distance you can view affected by the thickness of atmosphere? We even said if you look horizontally out at 1,000 feet of elevation, you will see further than if you look out horizontally at sea level, which is an interesting thing we need to remember and use later.
There's no discrepancy there. So let's keep in mind that all these scenarios are extremely dependent on all the variables, the atmospheric conditions, the sea level conditions of that day, the drop off, the 1,300-foot drop off you're looking at here, your angle of incidence, right? It's not as cut and dry. Oh, I can see further, therefore this, or I can't see as far, therefore that, right? To Barney's point earlier with the pressure, temperature, and density, it all ties in together.
So you have no idea of the relationship between the thickness of atmosphere and the distance you can see. It's just what you see.
No, we've just Barney and I just explained the.
No, I don't want Barney. Barney is not explaining your model. Barney is explaining reality.
No, he asked.
No,
Barney
Barney was explaining reality.
We're talking about your model, Chris.
Listen, Barney asked questions. I answered, and he said he, for the most part, let's just say, agreed.
Yep. Which was about particulates.
Yeah.
But then he said no. The density of the atmosphere would be greater as you descend. Therefore, you are looking through more atmosphere. Correct me if I'm wrong on anything you say, Barney.
Yes, I agree with that.
And you said the thickness of the atmosphere, the density of the atmosphere is one of the things that restricts you from seeing distance. That's why objects disappear at a distance, is because of the density of the atmosphere. Now, I'm looking from atmosphere that starts at sea level, mean sea level, and I'm looking down 1,300 feet into thicker atmosphere where we're seeing a rise of about 40, 50 torr in pressure. Yeah, so that's a reasonable, it's 5, 6, 7%, plus 7% more atmosphere. So surely I would expect my distance to be reduced accordingly. Yeah, except I can see miles and miles and miles into the distance.
So
I can
let
see.
me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. If you're dropped to the bottom of that ravine, let's say just below that, let's say you could just fall down and then you look the same area straight out. Are you going to see those mountains?
Yes.
Right. You're going to see the mountains.
So and that's another problem for you.
No, it's no problem.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Why aren't those mountains disappearing into the haze?
Oh, why aren't they disappearing over the curve?
Because I'm below sea level at the moment, and I'm actually at quite a high elevation.
Well,
so I can't see the curve.
Doesn't have to do with this. You're below sea level.
Would be behind the mountains at this level, because I've got that viewing distance. If I was down on shore, I wouldn't see the base of the mountains, but I'd see a higher elevation of them.
So here's a good thing so this is going to answer your question.
It's annoying. I'm pissed off because I went actually swimming in the Red Sea. It was a really good laugh.
So here's the answer to your question, or here's how you solve this question. You have to take this photo, or somebody takes this photo from this elevation at the mountains. You go to the bottom 1,300 feet below, looking at the same mountains from relatively the same distance, and you take another photo and you compare them. If you can see the mountains, but it's hazier, well then it's hazier because you're looking through more atmosphere. If it's less hazy at the top, you're looking through less. You see?
Chris, I'm not saying that the atmosphere has zero effect. What you're claiming is it's the only effect.
Here's what I can you read this?
No, I didn't claim that. I didn't claim it's the only effect.
Okay. So again, the relevant question that's being unanswered by Chris is, Chris, how far do you think you can see through the atmosphere on a clear day?
Define clear day.
Sunny, and the air pressure and the air temperature is relatively similar to the sea temperature. Let's make it nice and simple.
I'm not asking you for an exact precise number. Like an order of magnitude would be fine. Can we see 1 kilometer, 10 kilometers, 100 kilometers, or 1,000 kilometers?
Well, again, it depends on your height.
At sea level, looking horizontally outwards.
Well, I mean, I can go off of real world photos that I've seen. So at near sea level, I think he's 250 feet above it. So not quite sea level, but fairly close. You can see about 60 miles away so far that we can tell.
Yeah, so
250 feet is
this whole conversation on both sides is completely pointless. There is no agreement here.
Yeah, there's no I don't know what the point of this whole conversation has been.
I was trying to test your hypothesis. And your hypothesis is things are obscured when you look through the atmosphere. And that is what is blocking you from seeing things. Yeah.
Well, that is true.
Whether
is true.
Yeah. But there's no curve effect. There's no curvature effect. What I was trying to do with this is say, look, I'm up 1,300 feet. I'm looking through really thick atmosphere. Yeah, that's kind of analogous to you standing at sea level and looking through that atmosphere at normal sea level. I'm actually looking through a worse atmosphere, so I should see less. Now, me, I gain elevation, I gain distance. Yeah, on a normal day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris's argument is the atmosphere is what makes a difference to how far I can see. So therefore, if I should not be able to see as far as he can at sea level. That's the point I'm making.
It depends on what day you're talking about. They're not
Let's talk a nice normal day like that one.
No, there is no normal day. Okay, listen.
Fuck off.
Don't say fuck off. There is no normal day. Like, you're not going
to average. We're going to take 3,000 days and we're going to average the fucker out, and we're going to call that normal.
There's no
Chris,
fucking normal or average.
You cannot tell me there's no such thing as average.
That's Travis,
I
by the way.
can and I will. I can and I
Well,
will.
plain truth, you can eat a dick. There is such thing as average. Get the
Okay.
Not in this regard. You have nothing to go on in this regard unless you have 365 pictures of the same location at the same time like you guys require, and you demonstrate this. I go out every single day and I see different things. I go out when the air temperature is the same as the water temperature. There's very little variance, and I don't see what I think I should. You guys don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, that's because you expect a flat Earth, and the Earth is
No. It's got nothing to do. No.
Sorry. No, that was a troll. That was a troll on my account. I didn't mean that seriously. I was just trying to be funny.
True.
No, I know, but some people do put those responses out there, but that's not it. I'm just simply looking out and seeing, like, there's this, like today, I went out this morning at 6 o'clock to catch the sunrise. And there's this particular spot that I absolutely love it because when the ether band distorts the direction that I'm looking at, it looks like a Monet painting, like a watercolor. It's just amazing. But then I'm just telling you guys, I know that you're talking about what you think should be the case. But I'm out there shooting this stuff, and it's at short distances, and it's just the shit that's out there, boats and birds and everything.
Okay, so the average temperature for where I live in the west of England for today is 17 degrees. That's based on records that were started in 1796.
Okay, great.
So does that mean I can get an average out of that series of figures?
Okay, I'm saying that what you're going to see can't be averaged. You can't predict what that temperature is going to produce. That is what I have said over and over again.
What we're saying is that we'll have a deviation from the mean, if you know what that means.
Okay, when you talk about the 7/6R, the what do you guys
I'm talking
call
about
that?
deviation from the mean.
Just let me flesh out what I'm trying to say. What do you guys call that? The 7/6R? Huh?
It's nothing to do with 7/6R.
Okay.
Hey, Travis, is ether band a flat Earth?
It has to do with 7/6R if we're talking about refraction. The conversation we've been having so far. Wait. The conversation we've been having so far has been about seeing. Seeing and refraction are two completely different effects. Are we now changing the topic?
No. I'm just trying to be clear. What is it? What you call standard refraction? Okay, right. Standard refraction. So, if you're hold on. If you're talking about taking the average air temperature and water temperature. I'm sorry. What?
All we're talking about is when we take an average. So I can look at a place and I can say, on average, the temperature is going to be about this. On average, pressure is going to be about that. I'm going to have a series of values that would, allow me to say, that's what I expect to see. I can then measure stuff and say, oh, that's the deviation from the norm. Now, we know on the norm, this is what we would expect because we've got a standard that we can benchmark against. And as Barney said, I'm talking specifically here about that standardized refraction based on standard values, based on the calculation derived from the standard refraction model. So we do that. So I know that if it's all, say, half a degree higher or lower, or maybe 5 millibars higher or lower, it's going to have the square root of fuck all effect on my image. Yeah, and I can treat it reasonably like average, plus or minus 1% type thing. Yeah, what I'm talking about with the example I'm putting to Chris's claim is the fact that it's the thickness of the atmosphere that stops me seeing things from a long way away. So I wanted to find an example that would represent that. So I did a bit of a thinking in my head. And years ago, when I was about 26, I went to Israel. And I got to go to Masada, which was one of the places I really, really want to see. I quite like the buildings of Herod the Great. Kind of a cool dude for that stuff. Not so nice, sure, according to the Bible. So that, to me, I thought was quite interesting because I remember the incredible view I had from Masada. Now, Masada is just below sea level. It's probably about 100, 150 feet below sea level. And it's looking down 1,000 feet into a valley, which is over 1,300 feet below sea level. So the atmosphere down there is denser. And we've measured the atmosphere down there, and it is denser. The pressure is higher. Yeah. On average, it's a good 40, 50 torr higher than we would see at sea level, way above what we would normally see sea level go to. So that, for me, was an interesting thought experiment because surely, according to Chris's model, if I'm looking through thicker atmosphere, I should see less. In my model, because I'm high up, I should see more. I can see more.
I'm not going to say anything different than what Chris has already said. My point is to say this. You can look at your averages of temperatures of both the air and the water, and I'm telling you that you can't get an average in terms of what you're going to see visibility-wise. You can't.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
I've issued a challenge to you with reasonable precision, right? I cannot get it to an infinite precision. I cannot tell you whether there will be a mirage or an inversion or any local atmospheric effect. But I can tell you how much of the looming I can expect and how far you will be able to see within a reasonable degree of accuracy.
Okay, Barney, can you please again just restate what you said that you cannot say? What is it that you said that you cannot?
I cannot tell you whether there will be a mirage.
Okay,
right?
listen to me. Listen to me very carefully. That is my point, because the mirage will distort your image so that you cannot verify your maths.
So
I don't know why you're sighing. That's reality.
No. Wait. Plain truth. That is literally saying that we cannot get sea level because there are waves on it, right? The minute effects will not change the overall effect.
Okay,
they will create distortion in this area of the picture locally for a limited amount of time, right?
And
you can get a thin thermal inversion which will create a local mirage along a band which is in line with the surface. If you move a couple of pixels above that, you will get you will get closer to the standard atmospheric effect, to the average atmospheric effect, right?
Okay, so you've heard.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you've heard what I think is fairly representative of where my position is. So when I get you the information that you need, we'll just have to see how it works out. But that's where that's my claim.
Well, what you're telling me is you can't tell anything from the pictures you take at all.
No. Okay, listen to me. Okay, I don't want to be a smartass, but I did not claim that you cannot tell anything. That is not what I said.
Yes, and what we're talking about, when we're talking about standard refractions, we are talking about the broad, stable, global effects that we can tell what they will be, right? I cannot tell you
That's
whether...
meaningless.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is, because again, I think that you can, again, Barney, unless you've already done this, like show me where you've done this before and you can validate your prediction, right? Because otherwise, it's just what you think is going to happen mathematically, because you're a smart guy, Barney. I'm not going to disparage that. I'm not going to say anything about your intellect whatsoever, because I know that you know what you think you know,
Yes.
right?
And I'm willing to put it on the test. That's why I'm offering. I have not watched any of your pictures. I have not seen any of your pictures. I have not watched any of your videos in regards to what we're describing here. I am saying that just using math, knowing how refraction works, and knowing the local overall atmospheric conditions, like what the temperature of the broad area at that time was, and what the pressure of the broad area at that time is, I can tell you how much of that overall looming effect you can expect. I do not know that, right? I do not know that. I'm confident that I can. I'm trying to get you to give me the basic information to test whether my math and my understanding of optics is sufficient to do that. If it is, if I, as a non-scientist, I'm not an optical physicist, I'm not an atmospheric expert, I'm just a guy, if I can figure out the math to accurately predict to within reasonable degree what you're going to see on the pictures that you have already taken, then I really don't see where your objection is, right?
Right.
And then I can say something. From the math, I can say something about the shape of the Earth.
Yeah, that's all well and good in terms of your being able to express what you just did. I understand what you're saying.
Yes, let's do it.
I know. I'm looking for, I know that I've taken snapshots of my compass before. I'm just looking for those because today, for some reason, it was really funny. I opened up my compass. I'm facing east, watching the sunrise, and my compass on my iPhone told me I was facing north. So I tried to do it this morning, and it didn't work out. So I'm looking through my old photos.
Yes, unfortunately, compasses on mobile phones are notoriously inaccurate.
That's fine. I'll work with it. Like if he tells me that, I'll look at Google Maps and kind of accept the accuracy that they have, and tell him, well, there should be this building of this shape, or send him a picture from Google Maps of is this close to what the image shows.
Well, let me ask you this:
if we cooperate, if the plain truth is willing to cooperate with me, we can figure this out in such a way that I never see his pictures before I tell him how much obstruction he should expect on each day. Right? And if I can do that, then the whole thing about, well, there are minor other effects which are affecting it in minor degrees, therefore we cannot say anything about the shape of the Earth, will be conclusively disproven because I can tell something from the models that we have. And those models accurately represent how refraction works and how it correlates to the atmospheric conditions, even though I can't say what every pixel will be like on that image. Right? Does anybody disagree with that?
No, I didn't disagree with you. I was letting you talk to the plane. What? And Chris.
What's that?
I'm now calling you the plane. What?
Thanks, I appreciate that. Imitation is the greatest form of flattery.
I know.
So, Travis,
Yes, sir.
do you agree with my claim? Right.
I understand it. I understand what your claim is, and it makes sense. So I don't agree with it, obviously, because I don't think it's gonna. I'm gonna predict that it is not going to work.
I'm going to predict that the Earth is a ball. Oh, look at it! God, I love being right.
I'm not going to take it if it's a bet, though.
But what I can do, Barney,
Sorry,
I
I'm
know
not
that I
going
can
to
do
bet against
this,
it.
Barney, is I can give you the coordinates, and then if you put those in at Google Earth, and then you go straight across those coordinates, there is a. I mean, I can just. I just don't want to go through all my photos. I'll try it real quick.
Yeah, coordinates, time of day. I think you need, right?
Yeah, like that. That's another thing. If your compass, if we cannot rely on a compass to give me a heading, you can give me the coordinates of where you're starting from and the coordinates of the thing that you can see in a picture. Like this building can be seen in the picture, and I can tell, and I will tell you how much it's occluded given the meteorological data for your area, for that area on that day, on that time of day.
I mean,
Right.
the other thing I said to him, Barney, is it'd be good if he took a picture zoomed in, and also a picture zoomed out, because it gives you much better. It's much easier then to actually locate what you're looking at, and where it is, make sure you get the right shit.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that, but I have no clue as to why you think that's significant. Because I'm taking a picture of a house.
Because 2 data points are better than 1, and especially if there's differences between them. Basically, we're changing, a variable, which is the zoom.
The only thing that's gonna change.
It gives us a wider view perspective of what we're looking out into. It locates you much more accurately than when you zoomed in, because we can't see where your feet are. And it just makes everything a lot easier when you're trying to relate it to where you are on something like Google Maps.
I don't need that level of accuracy.
I would just say that would be a good practice for him to do, because it just means he's got a reference shot for every zoom in, or for every series.
The effect that I'm trying to pinpoint is that yes, I know that the overall refraction, the looming effect, the overall looming effect of the atmosphere changes from day to day. It changes slowly and gradually as the pressure and temperature change, right? Because that gradually changes the density, and the density at one point kind of determines what the overall density of the column is. How the column.
Well, it's not. The looming doesn't change. The looming doesn't change.
The looming does change. That's what makes you see further beyond the horizon on some days. Why on some days you see more of an obscuration, and on other days you see less, right?
We contend it almost looms every day.
And the other thing,
Just
wouldn't
how
the flat Earth look like a ball?
No, looming the way that you are talking about it doesn't exist.
And that's what we're about to see.
Yep. All right, let me see if this is it.
I mean, Barney, wouldn't the flat plane look like a ball?
Yes, it would.
Just thinking about that.
Okay, here we go. How about this? I've got the locations of the house. I'm going to email that to you right now. This is the opposite house.
Okay. Your coordinates of the house and the.
I'll get you, and I have the
date and hour when the image was taken, and I'm pretty sure that AccuWeather has hourly reports, but I'll try to look up your some local meteorological station and get accurate data from them.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not letting me copy this for some reason. Oh, there we go. All right. I'm going to go on mute, and I'm putting together those two things right now.
I mean, the other thing as well, Barney, would the color affect the amount of refraction you get from an object?
Yes, but you need a pretty strong, pretty high index of refraction to have that effect as meaningful.
Well, I was just thinking wind turbines. I mean, it's certainly in the UK, you have to paint the bottom 30 or 50 feet bright yellow. So
I don't think it would, like, chromatic aberration would be minimal, like really, really minimal.
So regardless of, so therefore we should see the yellow. So I think that's another interesting test.
Yeah, the only difference would probably be like a fluorescent or something like that.
It's not fluorescent. Because that's why they have lights on. Oh, that's better. Did anyone watch the end of that Ranty and Toady hangout? Because I couldn't be asked, to be honest. I think I got about an hour and a half in and I gave up because Anthony was just continually trying to fog the issue.
No, I didn't watch any of it.
I do my best not to give Ranty watch time.
It's probably a good call. But yeah, I think we need to rename him Fred Astaire because I haven't seen someone tap dance that well since Dancing in the Rain.
Anthony Fred Astaire Riley.
Oh, come on. Someone should have pulled me up. It wasn't Fred Astaire in Dancing in the Rain.
No, but Fred Astaire's a hell of a dancer.
That's also true. Anthony Fred Astaire O'Reilly. I like it.
You know, strangely enough, the first place I ever saw Fred Astaire because a youngin was on an episode of The Nanny when he was a special guest star.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it must have been an interesting person to meet. I always wanted to meet David Niven, but he died when I was quite young. Well, not that young, but relatively young. I think he died in the 80s. Cool. I think I am going to leave you kind gentlemen to deal with the plain, I'm quite not sure what reality is. Because I think it's enough for one day. So have fun.
So. Everyone's starting to sober up enough here to go out and drink again, so we're going to do that.
All right, so I got you those two locations.
Okay, which one is which? So, coordinates number 1, I see a pin dropped on a beach. That's the place where you're taking a photo from, right? Travis?
Yeah, my headset was acting funny. Say it again.
The first one that you sent is a pin on the beach. That's where you're taking the pictures from, right?
That's the look. No, that is the subject of the picture taking. So the second coordinates that I sent you were the coordinates where I shoot from. The first coordinates were the place that I take my observations of.
Okay, I'll take a look and try to figure it out, and I'll get back in touch with you if I don't get something or if it's unclear or. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Barney.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Oh, Travis, did he leave?
He left.
Yeah, he left.
Okay.
Did he give you the time and date?
No.
That's what I was like, damn it.
Well, I don't think he's taken the picture yet.
This is fine. Like this is enough for me to figure out where all of the things are and find it on Google Earth, and then I have to go on a hunt for a local weather station that I can ask for the precise data.
Yeah, but you need time and date for that.
Huh?
But
no,
you need time and date for that.
I need to establish contact, right?
Yeah.
Not every station has their information public. If I find one that has public information, which is near to what he's filming, that would be awesome. In that case, I don't care which time and date. But otherwise, I need to go and say, hi, I am trying to get specific information for date and time. Is that something I can get from you? Stuff like that.
Right. Weather Underground is a pretty good resource if you've ever used it. weatherunderground.com. They've got history and lots of station.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that. Thanks for the reference.
Yeah, I had a bizarre weather condition that clued me into that. I was trying to find out why I noticed a weird pattern of why drop calls increased on my network every time, or sorry, decreased on my network every time it got windy. So I wanted to see if that was a true statement or not, and I wanted to go through the history on it, and I found that there was a huge correlation between it. Still
Was
haven't
that a
figured out why.
slightly wobbly mast?
Well, you could say that, but it was across the whole network. Winds over if you had a windy day over 15 but less than 30, if it wasn't like a horrendous storm that was taking out equipment, you could predict that you'd have a 10-15% reduction in drop calls. The only thing I ever came up with is yes.
Oh, sorry, I misheard you because I thought you. I assumed increase the wind, more dropped calls, simply because you'd get, for example, trees being moved around, which would affect transmission path. But
yeah, that was actually my hypothesis, is that it actually was opening up hard fades and allowing the call to survive a little bit longer in hard fades. But I'm not sure that really answers the whole question, but it was my hypothesis, and I left it there because it was kind of irrelevant. I can't control the wind.
No.
But it was an interesting thought. Like, wind doesn't blow radio.
One night it was a bit windy, and it wasn't that windy, but we were trying to watch TV in the crew room, and we suddenly started getting this is analog terrestrial television, and we suddenly started getting a lot of snow, and then the weather got a little bit worse, and then all of a sudden it started getting really bad, and then going okay, and then getting really bad again. And it turns out that the aerial was mounted on the roof of the building on a wooden post, and the wooden post had snapped off, and the aerial was now hanging from the building, inverted, and the wind had then got up enough that it was coming around the corner of the building and starting the aerial swinging backwards and forwards horizontally, and of course it was swinging through the transmitter, because initially when it went over, it happened to still be pointing pretty much straight at the transmitter. Just like upside, because of course it was now 180 degrees over, so it wasn't like the polarization was wrong.
Right. Yeah, I got such a kick out of it because I first saw it and I'm like, "Hey guys, are you seeing this?" And it's like, "Okay, I'm gonna make a prediction. It's gonna be windy tomorrow. We're gonna have about the best drop call rate we've had all week." They're like, "How do you know?" I'm like, "Trust me." And all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, it is better." And this was looking at it systemically over a region that was spans hundreds of square miles. And it's like, yep, it went down like 10% across all areas, all regions. Just got better. And so, somebody said, well, maybe it's the towers, waving back and forth a little bit, but it's like, well, that should make it better and worse. It should sort of work itself out to about even. And it was consistent. I haven't tried it in a few years to see if it still follows that pattern. I'm in a new network.
Wonder if it was like blowing off particulates or something like that when it got windy.
Couldn't say. It was a really interesting observation that I tracked for 6 weeks to 8 weeks, and then I thought, okay, this is boring. I can't do this.
We can't get him out into the actual cave.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
was thinking what we should do is get a bunch of fans and just start blowing them on our cell sites.
Yeah. I mean, given the sorts of frequencies that cell phones have been operating at, movement of trees would, I think, have a reasonable
this was a
amount
1900 megahertz system too, so
yeah, so
foliage does have a big impact.
Yeah, so
thank you.
Sorry about that. Daughter decides she's going to come in and steal the cakes I bought earlier.
Oh man, did you beat her?
No, I can't get away with that anymore. She's got a fiance who might not like it, and she's pregnant.
Oh, okay.
So,
I'll give you a pass.
Well, and not after the comment she made the other day when
yes,
day when you were trying to explain stuff.
Yes, but I was talking to Travis. Was I talking to? I can't remember. Was I talking to Travis or was I talking to? Or was I talking to Montreal?
Mr. Kipling's let us down.
I think it was Montreal.
Yeah, I mean it was the rotating. It was the enclosed merry-go-round, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep,
that was the one.
For that word, I am not going to. I'm going to say for that word, I am not going to say tonight. And yeah, but she got the timing perfect, didn't she?
Oh, it was awesome. You don't get no better than that.
She gets the gold cup for the day on that one.
Yeah, I might have sent a link of that to somebody as well. Somebody called Tau.
Tau Ceti Alpha. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, now I got to move my picture over there, put my design into action, and I've just spent $1 million. I love how with the mere click of a button, I spend millions of dollars.
Yep. It's really easy to do it, isn't it?
Yep. It's like, yeah, we'll do it this way. Boom, million.
And then of course there's the other one where you click the button, you go, I just lost $1 million.
What route is this?
I had that happen. Not a million, but I lost 50,000 with the click of or with the failure to make a phone call. I was moving my 401k, and I told them I'd like to put a stop on it if the market took a tank. And they're like, well, you can't do that. You just call us up at 5 and you can cancel the order. Well, okay. I got into a meeting and forgot all about it because I was in a meeting. The meeting let out about maybe 5:30, and I looked down at my watch and said, oh, I was supposed to do something at 5. And then I looked up at the monitor on the TV, and we went through a huge market correction. It's like, God dang it. 50 grand, boom. Actually, it was 25 when I went out of position, and when I went into the position, the same.
Well, that's the market for you. I mean, it's just the nature of having any stocks.
Yeah, it just pissed me off though, man. It's like, why couldn't they let me put an automatic stop on it?
Because they want your money.
Yeah. They treated it like it was also the government trying to protect me. It's like, oh yeah, you're not allowed to do that because of this law and whatever else. I'm like, oh, okay, well, shit. I'll just pay attention. Whoops. And after the last correction, like last week, and maybe I need a different financial planner, but last week they called me up saying, oh, you know what, we're getting to a sort of potential for them. We've been on an up market for a long time. You might want to start moving to some more conservative positions. But they called me up the day that we had a huge correction. And so I guess it's like maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not ready to move. I think it's going to correct back to where it was. Yeah, that was just a market jitters. And he kept on pushing me. Yeah, you should move it. You should move it. You should move it. I'm like, nah. Well, I was right not to move it.
My financial advisor, he's really good. He'll take a look at everything, and he says, you could move this into something more conservative, but I wouldn't if I was you. But I can't tell you what to do.
Yeah, they're using the long-term trending of the fact that the market's been up so long that we are probably looking at a pretty big correction coming down the pike soon, and soon could be 6 months, a year. But we've been on an up market for a little bit too long, and history kind of says that doesn't always continue forever. So I mean, I believe that he's right, but they have no idea when it's going to happen. The move right now seems foolish.
Yeah, at this point, it's kind of up in the air. It really depends on what happens in the next, whenever it happens, because it's going to take one major turn is all it is.
Yep.
You can't predict that. That could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be 10 years. Who knows?
Right. It's as enough people start to say, I'm concerned, then something happens, and then all those concerns join together with all the different people, and they start making a market swing. Or it could be as simple as there's a bomb that goes off in New York City. Yeah.
Yeah, or it could be as simple as the supplies for one part of manufacturing or start to deplete or something like that, and
Yep.
all of a sudden crazy town again, just like the housing market.
Oh no, don't do that. I just spent an hour on this. You're not allowed to blow up on me after that.
Barney, did you see those pictures that on Sean G's hangout last night of LIGO?
Yes, I didn't see it on the last night's hangout, but I saw when who was it? the little guy Sasha, when Sasha shared them after his trip.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Those were some amazing pictures of it. You know, of the sheer size of the facility.
Damn, I missed
Any
that.
good pictures of it not curving?
Yeah. I joined Sean's at the beginning, and then I don't know, Ellie came in, and there was a rattle. People were yelling and trolling and not being coherent on either side, and people were throwing out things that were obviously wrong, and just I couldn't, so I quit and I didn't watch the rest of it.
Yeah, you know, there were a lot of wrong things being said, but Ali was still stuck on the gyro compass being a gyroscope, and he just couldn't wrap his head around it.
Oh God. Yeah, I think I heard some of that.
Yeah, I managed to fall asleep last night in Sean's, unfortunately, I think. Because I did end up getting muted by somebody. So I guess I must have been snoring again.
Yeah, towards the end it was just a couple of us hanging around in Montreal, Sean and myself, and then Sasha popped on at the end, and it was pretty cool. Going over some, you know, he had to give an explanation to me about geoengineering on, you know, because I was thinking more localized and he was thinking more global.
Near as I can tell, there's no global yet.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know there's been local stuff done with cloud seeding and bits and pieces like that, but don't think we've seen anything on a global scale.
Yeah, I've heard them claim there's one guy, I can't remember his name, but he goes out on tangents that we're sending ships out into the ocean, dumping iron oxide into the oceans. And it's like, I know they've done tests like this, but I don't think that there's anything of any scale. It's like, yeah, well, we tried it, and yes, there was an increase in algae bloom. Good. But it was not a attempt to try and modify the entire ocean.
We just use plastic bottles for that.
Unfortunately.
Keeps the stupid bird population down so they don't poop on my boat.
You Americans and your boats.
You guys have boats too.
I don't have a boat. You know, the best boat in the world is my friend's boat.
Actually, they're much the best boats, aren't they? Because they're not your money pit.
They had a commercial for what they call Freedom Boat Club, which is a timeshare for boats. And the commercial goes, the best day of a boater's life is the day he buys his boat. And he goes, you hear him go, woohoo, as he drives off. You hear the motors rev, and then then there's when you go to sell your boat. Goodbye, you worthless tub. But and then Freedom Boat Club, you get to use the boats, and somebody else takes care of them for you.
Yeah.
By the way, it's really expensive.
Yeah. Oh, I bet it is. Any type of timeshare is really expensive.
When you get down to it.
Well, sorry, any type of organized timeshare is really expensive.
Right.
Right.
You know, a syndicate of people buying something like a plane or a boat and being able to book it out and use it, that I don't think is likely to be nearly so expensive, because you haven't really got the management costs that you've got to pay for, have you?
Well, it depends. I mean, you still have to store the boat. You still have to have the boat cleaned and everything like that. So the price could still be going up depending on the location. You know, boat slip here may be more expensive than somewhere else.
Yeah, I was thinking, sort of compared with just owning a boat on its own, and certainly compared with an organised timeshare type organisation.
Yeah, when I have my boat working up the way I want it to and stuff, I'll usually take it out for a week a year. I'll take going somewhere, and then I'll go out like most weekends and go to my favorite haunts. So I get a lot of use out of it when all is going well.
Yeah.
And I compare that to how much it costs somebody to take a family vacation to wherever. It's not a horrible expense, but you do have to you do have to kind of rate it based upon your lifestyle and how much you're going to use it. A lot of people don't use them at all. They get these things, they look good, and they sit in the dock.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If you're going to use it every weekend, then you're getting your money's worth out of it, aren't you? So that's fine. Like I say, as long as you can also afford it.
Yeah, it's not cheap. It's definitely not cheap. My boats are cheaper. Like I bought mine for $5,000. It's 29 footer. I drove it from New York to North Carolina, and had a good vacation on it. And that's what my plan was just to I was ready to throw the thing away when I was done with it. So it's a little bit pricey for a vacation, but it did what I wanted. But then I started saying, I really like it, and I haven't boated in 20 years. Maybe I want to get back into it. But in order to make that boat last, I got to put engines in it. And that's been something I talked to a guy in here about. And it's something like $14,000 to have somebody else do the work. I'm like, now you're starting to talk about real monies.
Oh yeah, that is.
But I could do it, through him for about 6,000. That's not monies, I'm perfectly happy to spend 6. 14 just for engines pisses me off.
Yeah, I can see how that might. I suppose you need 2 of them, do you?
Yeah, I do. The other nice thing about that boat is I personally can keep the greenhouse effect in place with that boat. So I keep my summers nice and warm. It's 1 gallon per mile.
Yeah, friend of mine used to water ski. He told me, he told me about how much petrol they used to have to put in that boat.
It's also funny, like when you look at boats, there's like this fine line, like you're 20 foot and below, like little water ski boats and stuff. Those you can cruise around at their nice cruising speeds, for relatively economically, maybe 6-7 miles per gallon. But then you cross over into this next style of boat where it's a cabin cruiser, and those from like say 27 to 45 or 50 foot, almost the same miles per gallon. You get 1 mile per gallon, unless you're doing diesel or something weird. It's like, how can I get the same mileage with my little boat as that big boat.
Because if you increase the length without significantly increasing the beam, they become much more hydrodynamically efficient.
Yep.
But you've got to not increase the beam.
And then all of a sudden you hit this point where it starts to become again more expensive. Half a mile per gallon, comes up really quick.
Yeah.
And then of course there's, when you're trying to, each boat has its own cruising speed. So I mean, you do kind of have to factor that in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get to the point where you're crying at the pump because it just doesn't stop. You just keep filling.
Yeah, I mean, I when I came down from New York, I had to fuel up 3 times, 150 gallons a pop.
I have absolutely no idea how far that is, not being that good on North American geography.
It's about 300 and change miles from where I actually went between.
Right. So not huge distances then, but still a decent distance.
And it was really fun. I mean, it was the first time my kids got to go out and experience what I experienced as a kid, because I boated my whole life up until age 25, maybe 30, and then I took off 20 years, and always thought about it, but just wasn't willing to bite the bullet. And so most of my kids grew up, and now I'm trying to get them into it so they can have their lives ruined.
Yeah, it's the one thing I've noticed is that very often your kids will become interested in whatever it is that you are interested in, and will often do that themselves. And like you say, until they're in their maybe mid-20s, and then they'll go and find whatever it is they like.
Yeah. One of the weird things about it is, I boated in an area that was when in my childhood, and didn't realize that this wasn't everywhere in the world. There was a place about 7 miles away from the marina that had a nice beach and a nice cove that you could go into, and about 1,000 boats on a weekend would show up there, and probably half of them would stay overnight for the weekends.
Yeah.
And so that was what I considered boating. Going there, having all these people around, all with the same hobby, all trying to fix up their worthless tubs. And then you have the rich people came in with their toys, and you could share their toys and stuff. Oh, it was great fun.
Yeah.
And then there was one long trip we would take was 90 miles to a place out in Long Island, which was just this awesome place that I remembered from my childhood. And so we did this, every year, as I was growing up. And then I was like looking at it, and I came down to this area in the Chesapeake Bay, and I'm like, I can't find those places. And then I realized that really in New York, where I was originally, there was only 2 places like that.
The 2 places
within 90 miles.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to find those places down here, but I'm still having a good time doing it.
A lot of people down here, they go out to the sandbars in the intercoastal, and they all hang out there, have parties and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. It's
day
just
boaters.
not my scene.
Yeah, they go out there for the day, and they leave at sunset and go back home.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Yep. Then you have the other ones that they basically live on their boat, little sailboats here and there. They've lived there for years and years, parked in the same spot.
Right. Yeah, there's a couple of those people at the marina I was at. There's a guy who has a boat that doesn't run. He bought it not running, and he doesn't ever plan on running it. It's just his house. And it's actually quite, as far as rent goes and stuff, not a bad deal. I think he was paying like $500 a month to keep it, and the boat cost him like $4,000. It's a 45, 47 foot boat with all the accoutrement, beautiful wood, teak, and it had sunk because a hose broke, and the engines got sunk, and he decided, well, I'm not going to fix it. I just want it as a camper. He lives there year round, doesn't have to pay for electricity.
Yeah, there's a guy that did that down here, and then I guess his boat got a little too close to shore, got a hole in the hull, and sunk halfway into the water, and he just left it there, and then eventually the town got involved, and it turned into a big
Yeah,
deal.
they'll come after you.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's big money too. It's not it's not cheap. Either way you look at it, you're either going to get it fixed, or or you're going to get the fines.
Yeah, because I joked about that when I went to take that vacation with the boat. I was going to go buy a real cheap boat that could just get me to the location I was trying to get to, and I said, I'll sink it or sell it when I'm done. And so that of course raised the question: what happens if you do sink it? And that's what I found out. Oh yeah, there's ecological things and all this sort of stuff. If they find out you find your name somehow, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, there was another guy. He had a pontoon boat, sank in the intracoastal, and he swam to shore and went on his merry business. Well, about a year later, they found him because they had divers down there, because there was a ship that came through and it got caught on a piece of the pontoon boat, ripped a huge hole in the ship, and when they dove down to figure out what was going on with it, they found his numbers on there, looked it all up, and yeah, that guy was in debt for the rest of his life. There were so many fines, and he had to pay for the other boat, and then pay for the sea tow to get out his boat and the other boat. So it was pretty expensive.
And when I was having my boat hauled to bring it home, there was one boat that was in the marina, and somehow we got talking about the propellers, because it was like these big 5-blade, like probably like 40-inch props on it. Big motor. Mm-hmm. But the props were $25,000 a piece. So you imagine hitting a pontoon boat and bending one of those suckers.
Oh yeah, props aren't cheap. Down here, there's a guy that he makes a fortune off of making props, but he is really good. He's probably one of the best. I'll say on the East Coast. He's been doing it for that long, and he makes they're beautiful. When he gets done with them, they're absolutely beautiful. But people come from all over, and it's all word of mouth. He's really good though.
Yeah, I brought mine up to a prop shop, and they were kind of sorry when I did that, because they had to take the bushings out, and they quoted me a price, and everything on this boat is 40 years old. And he went to take those bushings out, and he said it took took two of their best guys like days to get them out without destroying the housings. They had to like chew them out.
You got your money's worth.
And let me guess, he quoted you a fixed price, did he?
Oh yeah. Because bushings, well, you just put them on the press, you pop them out, not a big deal. Oops. I'm sure in the end they still made a profit, though. I mean, it just meant that they didn't make the profit they were expecting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, that, or they'll just tack it onto somebody else's bill.
Right.
My buddy and I, he lives a little bit further up north on the St. Johns River, and it's all spring-fed water, but it runs through cypress trees, a bunch of cypress trees. So the water, when you look at it, it looks like it's dirty, but it's really just all the cypress that's in it. And it's beautiful up there. I mean, there's alligators, catfish, and everything. We go up, and we'll go camping. Well, he has this John boat from 1953 or something like that. The aluminum on it is, it's to the point where the only thing that's holding it together is the epoxy that he keeps rubbing on it. But instead of using a regular little motor, he's got a mud motor on it, and which is a long shaft.
Right, like the swamp boats.
Yeah, and he said, rather than go out and buy a marine motor for it or something like that, he's like, I go to Harbor Freight, I pick up a motor for $90, and I throw it on there, and it fits the shaft, and everything's good. He's like, and I never have to worry about it, because if it breaks down, I just get another one.
Yeah. They can't beat those Harbor Freight motors, and they're not bad motors either.
No. Especially for using it for that little John boat, it was great. It got you where you wanted to go. It's not like you're out there trying to, race or anything like that. You're just trying to get through the weeds and stuff.
Well, let me duck back to what I'm supposed to be doing. Talk it, or I'll listen. Actually, I can't listen because my earphone just went dead.
All right, Ken. We'll talk to you later.
Talk to you.
Okay, Ken. Thanks for being here.
Hey, it was fun.
Yeah, I guess I should head back into the office myself. Well, thanks for having me on there, Alan.
Oh, that's all right. It's a pleasure as always, Sean.
Yeah.
Sorry, I now have to go into my talking quietly mode because the future son-in-law has gone to bed because he has to be up rather early in the morning to go to work.
Well, that's what happens. Work's good for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, at least he's getting up early and going to work.
Yeah, exactly.
And quite often working 13, 14-hour days. So, I ain't going to knock the boy.
No, definitely not. Well, I guess we'll talk with you later.
Yeah, I think I'm going to call since everybody else seems to be kind of on mute and not here, I guess I shall call the show to an end, and we have been going nearly 3.5 hours, so I think that's probably a good place to stop it, isn't it?
I do believe so.
So I will say a good night to everybody out in YouTube land. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and good night, everybody.
Good night.